Joined tonight in a few minutes by Dr. David Imhotep. Dr. David Imhotep is the author of the groundbreaking book, The First Americans Were Africans Documented Evidence. The First Americans Were Africans Documented Evidence. You've heard me interview him a number of times. I think this is my 14th time interviewing him. And his book deals with the ancient African presence in the Americas, but also in the land we call the United States of America, going back at least 51,700 years ago. He has a new book that is coming out September 2020, The First Americans Were Africans Revisited. And also, I wanted to talk to him tonight about some new research that came out this past week. NBC News and many other outlets had a article dealing with ancient stone tools suggest first people arrived in America earlier than thought. Ancient stone tools suggest first people arrived in America earlier than thought. And you've heard me say before, the deeper they dig, the blacker the planet gets, the more research they do, the older we get. Okay, so we continue to every other month, new archaeological discoveries come out that cause scientists and anthropologists and paleontologists to rethink everything. If you follow me on my Facebook fan page, The African History Network, you know I've been dealing with this type of information for a number of years. Okay, so and then also there was a new study that came out. Also, BBC News and CNN had this article. It was updated July 26, 2020. A new DNA study offers insight into the horrific story of the transatlantic slave trade. A new DNA study offers insight into the horrific story of the transatlantic slave trade. So we'll talk about that in a few minutes with Dr. David Imhotep. Also on today's show, I want to deal with some of the protests that are going on across the country. We see protests in Portland, Oregon. We see it in Seattle, Washington, other cities, Los Angeles, et cetera. So we'll talk about some of the protests that are going on and how Donald Trump is turning federal troops, turning the military on largely peaceful protesters, violating their First Amendment right and Fourth Amendment right. He's exhibiting his authoritarian behavior. I warned you about this in 2016. People thought I was playing. They thought he wasn't going to be that bad. Donald Trump asked African Americans, what the hell do you have to lose? My response was everything. If you see what he's doing to white moms in Portland, Oregon, turning the police on them, turning federal troops on white moms in Portland, Oregon. If he would do that to white mothers, what do you think he'll do to African Americans? This is a legitimate question. Okay. So we'll talk about that. And then also we saw in Louisville, Kentucky, the NFAC not effing around black militia. They showed up in Louisville, Kentucky, demanding justice for Breonna Taylor. And there was a standoff between them and a white militia, and the police were in the middle of them trying to separate them. OK, you saw me I shared the broadcast live yesterday. Some people were on the ground and news outlets on the ground broadcasting what was taking place. So we'll talk a little bit about that as well. We have a coronavirus update for you. Also, this past week, the U.S. Topped 4 million cases, and we see 5 states set daily records. We see that the U.S. Had 4 days in a row this past week of 1,000 deaths or more. Okay, 4 days in a row. At the same time, Donald Trump is backing off slightly, demanding that all the school children go back to school and the schools open back up. He's admitting that cities that are hot spots, they may have to delay opening back up. You think? Really? Okay. Yeah. So there was a meme that I posted on my Facebook fan page. You got over 1,000 likes. It was a white kindergarten teacher. This white kindergarten teacher had a sign that said something to the effect of, if the meeting to reopen schools was held online because it's not safe, should we be talking about reopening schools? If the meeting to plan reopening schools is held online because it's not safe to meet in person, should we be really talking about reopening schools? Okay. And then also, this past week, we found out new information dealing with coronavirus and finding out how a third of the patients who recover have long-lasting side effects. Okay, we find that out, and then also CBS News has a report. Study identifies 6 different types of COVID-19 as well. So as week after week, we learn more about the coronavirus that Donald Trump, February 28th, I think it was, he said was the Democrats' new hoax. It gets worse and worse. But Donald Trump said, is going to all of a sudden just going to wash away. All right. I'm waiting for it to wash away. Okay. So we'll deal with all that on tonight's show and more. And then also this past week, talk about constitutional crisis. Donald Trump signed a memo to omit undocumented immigrants from being counted in the U.S. Census. He signed a memo to omit undocumented immigrants from being counted in the U.S. Census. This will hurt Democratic-leaning states and African Americans. And this is all designed to steal future presidential elections for Republicans. I'm going to break this down. You have to understand the U.S. Constitution, the Electoral College, U.S. Census, and the Electoral College and the U.S. Census were both created by the U.S. Constitution. So you have to understand constitutional law and history. This is a direct violation of Article 1 of the U.S. Constitution, what Trump is doing after the U.S. Supreme Court ruled that it was unconstitutional when he tried to put the citizenship question. When he tried to put the citizenship question on the U.S. Census, U.S. Supreme Court ruled that that was unconstitutional. So now he's trying to go around the Mr. Law and Order. He wants to be the law and order president, right? He's the lawless. He's the president of lawlessness and disorder. He wants to go around law and order and do whatever he wants to do. Okay, that's an authoritarian. So we'll deal with that as well. Now, on the African History Network show, we focus on educating, empowering, and inspiring people of African descent throughout the diaspora and around the world, because right now it's correct your own behavior. What you do for yourself, what you do to yourself, and what you allow other people to do to you and get away with is based upon what you think about yourself. What you think about yourself is based upon what you have been taught about yourself. What you've been taught about yourself is based upon everything you've read, heard, and seen about yourself. So when you control the radius of a man's thoughts, you can control the circumference of his actions, because the mind can't do or teach what it doesn't know. Now, we deal with a number of different topics here. On the African History Network show, we deal with current events, history, politics, education, economic empowerment, entrepreneurship, relationships, love, sex, health issues, and much, much more. Sign up for our email newsletter. Text the word Kemet, K-E-M-E-T. Text the word Kemet, K-E-M-E-T to 22828 to sign up for our email newsletter. Also visit our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. You can sign up for our email newsletter there as well. You can donate to the African History Network, $ the AHN show through Cash App, $ the AHN show through Cash App. And then also through PayPal, paypal.me /the AHN show, paypal.me /the AHN show through PayPal. All right. So let's see. We have Dr. David Imhotep on the line now, and we're broadcasting on our Facebook fan page, The African History Network, The African History Network, also on my YouTube channel, Michael Imhotep, IMHOTEP. Shout out to everybody there. So we want to welcome back to the African History Network show my friend, Dr. David Imhotep. Hotep, brother, how you doing tonight? Okay, we have him on. Dr. David Imhotep, can you hear me? Hey, JT, do we have Dr. David Imhotep on? All right, stand by, everybody. Oh, hold on. Lost connection. Just a second here. Just 1 second. We're working from home. So let me call back into the station. All right. Okay. All right. All right. All right. Stand by, everybody. So I wanted to talk about I wanted to talk about, first thing I wanted to talk about was this article, and you all should still be able to hear me on Facebook. First thing I wanted to talk about was this article. The Journal of Nature has a study, National Geographic. Usually when these archaeological discoveries come out, all the news outlets have this, okay? You may not see it on MSNBC or something like that, but all the news outlets have it. Okay, do we have them back? JT.
Give me just one moment.
Okay, all right. I'm going to keep talking. Just leave me on the air. I'm going to keep talking. Okay, so usually when these archaeological discoveries come out, and sometimes some of them may get by me, but usually I find out about them. We have archaeological discoveries coming out every month, every other month. All the news outlets carry it. Now, you may not see it on MSNBC. You may not see it on CNN, but NBCnews.com carries the articles, Washington Post, New York Times, National Geographic, etc. So if we look at this latest discovery, ancient stone tools suggest first people arrived in America earlier than thought. Now, this is from July 22nd, 2020, NBCnews.com. I posted the article on our Facebook fan page when this article came out, but it got very little response. Okay. I don't know why people should be jumping all over this. 3 deliberately shaped pieces of limestone, a pointed stone, and 2 cutting flakes may be the oldest human tools yet found in the Americas. May be the oldest human tools yet found in the Americas. Now, we know that in about 2011, there were stone tools on the Greek island of Crete that were found that date back about 130,000 years ago. New York Times had a big article about this archaeological discovery. Okay. And I've talked about it in my lectures. I first found out about it from Dr. David Imhotep, and then I went and researched it. And on the Greek island of Crete, archaeologists, they did an excavation for over the course of 2 summers. And they found stone tools that they say date back at least 130,000 years ago. And they said that they said because of this discovery, they have to push back seafaring in the Mediterranean when they thought seafaring in the Mediterranean started. So when all these discoveries come out, the deeper they dig, the blacker the planet gets, the more research they do, the older we get. Okay. We haven't back yet.
We do not. They keep saying the line is busy. I've tried calling like 4 times.
Okay, hold on. What is he doing? He may be trying to call.
If you want, we can go to get our break out of the way and we'll get this fixed.
Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah. We're up against a commercial break. Okay. Let's go to break. You listen to the African History Network show right here on 910 AM, the Superstation Future Radio. I'm your host, Brother Michael Imhotep. We'll be back with Dr. David Imhotep in a few minutes. Okay. Stand by, everybody. We're going to commercial break. I'm going to keep talking. We're on commercial break. Okay. So what happens is these archaeological discoveries take place every month, every other month. And when you read them, and I read the articles, they say that it's causing the archaeologists, the paleontologists, etc. They're saying they have to rethink everything. They're saying they have to push back the dates of when they think migration started, and push back the dates of when they think humans first came to the Americas and the land we call the United States of America. Okay. So, in Dr. David Imhotep's book, in his book, he deals with the discovery by Dr. Albert Goodyear in Allendale County, South Carolina in 2004, 16 years ago, where they found 13 different types of evidence documenting the African presence in Allendale County, South Carolina, that dates back at least 51,700 years ago. Artifacts, architecture, campsites, carvings, footprints in lava, genetic M174D haploid groups dealing with DNA and genetics, skeletons, stone tools, structures, all different types, 13 different types of evidence. Okay. On page 14 of his book, he deals with this. So Dr. Albert Goodyear is an archaeologist at the University of South Carolina. So when you deal with when you deal with this, okay, what is this? Kemet 6261. What is that? If you want to sign up for our email newsletter, text the word Kemet to 22828. Okay. All right. Stand by. Okay. So now the reason why this information is so important is because when we put all this history in chronological order, this does not mean the transatlantic slave trade did not happen. People misunderstand this. You have some people, you see, we have to put all this in chronological order. Okay, welcome back to the African History Network show, right here on 910A on the Superstation, WFDF. I'm your host, Brother Michael Imhotep. It is Sunday, July 26, 2020, and we are live. Okay, we should be joined by Dr. David Imhotep in just a minute. Did we have him back?
Yes, you do.
Okay, Hotep, Dr. David Imhotep, welcome back to the African History Network show. How you doing tonight, brother?
I'm fine. Looks like somebody doesn't know what's talking that.
Say that again?
What could that be? Number 45 or
What'd you say?
46? I said, who could that be? Number 45 or number 46?
Oh, okay.
Somebody like that?
Somebody doesn't want you to talk tonight. Oh, we're going to work it out, brother. Brother's going to work it out. And we got our board operator, JT, man, on the other side. He's there in the studio. I'm here at home. So because of COVID-19, They have us broadcasting from home. So I have a home studio. So we're going to make it happen, brother, one way or another. You know,
yeah, we got to keep you safe, bro, because you do too much for our community.
Absolutely, man. You too as well. Well, look, brother, I was letting people know about you while we were reconnecting. And you are the author of the groundbreaking book, The First Americans Were Africans, Documented Evidence. Your book has 713 footnotes, thoroughly documented. I'm getting some background noise. Is something going on in your background there?
Not at all.
Okay. Your book has 713 footnotes, thoroughly documenting an African presence in the Americas, going back at least 56,000 years ago in South America, and in the land we call the United States of America, going back at least 51,700 years ago. So before we get into the two articles I want to talk about tonight, give us an overview of your book, and then also your new book that's coming out September 2020.
Okay, an overview would be, I would start from the beginning and just give you.
Go ahead.
The name is self-explanatory. That's the first Americans were Africans, not Indians. You know, we're taught in schools today as we were when I was back in school. I learned the same thing as they're teaching today in elementary school, and that is that the first that the first Africans were brought to the Americas in 1619 as slaves by the English.
Oh, you mean like the 1619 project? You mean like the 1619 project from the New York Times? All right, go ahead. You and I talked about that before, man, but go ahead.
Well, I have, just for people who don't know what peer-reviewed evidence is,
Mm-hmm.
in any discipline in the universities, you have people who read different articles in their genre, and if they are peer-reviewed, if they are giving the public the absolute correct evidence, then that they sign up for peer-reviewed papers. Well, I have I think it was 15 people on that peer-reviewed board who peer-reviewed my book, and they okayed it. So I have peer-reviewed evidence now that the 1619 date is a joke. I mean,
right. And now, when you say that, just so people understand, when you say that, you're not saying that 1619 did not happen. What you're saying is that's not when African people first came to this landmass that today we call the United States of America.
Exactly. You know, the doggone Vikings were here before Columbus.
Right.
And they say Columbus discovered America. Come on, he discovered the I would say the islands around the Caribbean for his people, for us white folks. But as far as the first Americans being Indians, we're talking about possibly $5 Indians. No, how about Africans? Africans were the first everything.
Mm-hmm.
Africans to prove that there are pyramids. I don't know if you don't know that, but people can you can look this up. There are pyramids. You know that there's no Chinese or Japanese or Asians. None of them ever made pyramids. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Asians never made pyramids. White folks never made pyramids. So who does that leave?
Right.
That leaves us.
Right.
Africans only build pyramids. There are pyramids now in every single continent on this planet,
Mm-hmm.
including, and I think you better put on the seatbelt when I tell you this, including Antarctica.
Right. I remember you talking about that. Yep. Go ahead.
Pyramids. Yeah, 3 pyramids in Antarctica. If you look it up on our YouTube or somewhere online, you can see them in situ. That means as they are today.
Right. And
with the and go ahead.
Yeah, and your new book that comes out September 2020, you talk about the pyramids in Antarctica in the new book.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. Now
I'm not going to talk about the ones on Mars because that's too far out.
Right. So,
I'll just talk about. I'm not saying it's not true, but anyway, we're only going to talk about things that we can prove we have documented evidence for.
Exactly. So I know a lot of people, I reference your information in various lectures that I do and in broadcast, things like this. I show your book and people say, hey, his book is $1,000 on Amazon. I explain to them, okay, his book is out of print. But your new book is coming out September 2020. What's the title of the new book?
The title is this. That is that someone does not want my book to come out to people. They're trying to block it and by putting numbers of that nature.
Okay.
I had to fire Amazon, who was my first publisher in 2011, about a year and a half ago, because I found my book was showing up in the Netherlands.
Mm-hmm.
Someone called me from the Netherlands, and also someone from England, I believe it was. And they said, "We love your new book." I said, "Wait a minute, my new book is not out yet. I'm still finishing it up."
Right.
So we have it right here. And I said, "Well, Xerox it and show it to me." And sure enough, it was that. So I had to. I think that I won't say their name, but my first publisher, I think they were behind that. But even if they're not, my book has been being sold, which is $722 now. The one that was not finished yet.
Oh, the one that's not finished yet.
Got a hold of my information. I finished writing it, but it's being edited as we speak. And then I'm going to be self-publishing, because I had another publisher who I went in with for just a few days or I would say a few weeks, and I found that they were not who they said they were. It was an African-American sister who wears onks and different things of that nature. I will not say her name because that would be cheap, but she also sent me to the rules. So I'm going to be coming out self-publishing now. So
right.
Everyone will be able to get what I'm writing. You understand that?
Exactly. So, and when the book comes out, oh no, I understand why. You and I've been talking about this. So you and I've been talking about this. You working on it and everything. So you've been screwed by different publishers and trying to get this book out.
Yeah.
Okay. So, and then when the book actually becomes available, we're going to bring you back and we'll do a Facebook Live, and you can do a slideshow presentation also. Okay, so I want to get into these 2 articles here that I sent you, and as I was explaining to people, well, first let me say this: do you have your website up? You have your website back up?
No.
Okay.
If it is, it's not right,
Okay.
I have someone who's going to be working on it.
Okay. So this is what you do when your website is back up. Give me the website address. I'll let people know about it as well.
Okay.
Archaeological discoveries come out every month, every other month, that cause scientists and anthropologists and paleontologists to have to push the timelines back. There was a new discovery that came out this past week. NBCnews.com had an article that I sent to you, came out July 22nd, 2020. Ancient stone tools suggest first people arrived in America earlier than thought. 3 deliberately shaped pieces of limestone, a pointed stone, and 2 cutting flakes may be the oldest human tools yet found in the Americas. Now, this was found in a cave in Mexico. Pieces of limestone from a cave in Mexico may be the oldest human tools ever found in the Americas and suggest people first entered the continent up to 33,000 years ago, much earlier than previous thought. Okay. Now they admit that this discovery is pushing it back earlier than previously thought. So in the world of archaeology, they usually agree that the first people in North America arrived about 16,000 years ago, and recent studies estimate it happened up to 18,000 years ago. But the latest discoveries coming out of Mexico push the date back by more than 10,000 years. So what does your research show? Because you go beyond this information right here.
Yes, I have information. This is also peer reviewed. Like I said, they were digging some kind of college or someone of that nature was digging in Central America, and you can call it Mexico if you want, and they hit a gigantic hide down where it shouldn't have been, way back. I think it's 15 or 20 feet down. And there was an animal hide, and because it was so old, all the bones, all the intestines, all of this, everything was eaten up and gone except for the raw hide itself and the hair. And what they did was they did a carbon-14 device. They studied that to see how old this carcass was, and they came up with a number of 250,000 years ago. Wait, hold on to your feet, hold on to your belt, hold on to everything, hold on to your hat.
Right.
The second thing that they found was inside the animal's carcass, or I would say hooked onto who shot it, was they found some arrowheads and a spearhead, and they were meticulously done. It wasn't like about cavemen. It was meticulous. It looked like almost something would come out of a machine shop.
Okay.
So they took those out, and those they did a test on that, but that was in order to date rock, something that had never lived. You have to find out what the count of the different parts in the atoms that are in there. And they found through a thermoluminescence dating, okay, which dates the rocks and the amount of atoms that have deteriorated, whatever is in the rock. They decided of the date of 350,000 years old. So between 250 and 300,000 years ago, okay, for sure there were people in Central America. Now, one other date that I like to give.
Okay.
This other date is not peer reviewed, and they're working on it now, but it's a beautiful, wonderful, brilliant sister by the name of Izili Danto. Have you ever heard of her?
What's her name?
Izili Danto.
Yeah, I know Izili. She's in the documentary 1804, The Hidden History of Haiti, and I've met her. She and Professor James Small spoke at the Charles H. Wright Museum of African American History. So yeah, I know her.
You,
mm-hmm.
You know about her.
Yeah, you know? And she's from Haiti. They found photos of a meteor that came through our atmosphere, and to come through the atmosphere, the meteor it's burning hot, it's red hot, it's thousands and thousands of degrees, and when it hit, it was on fire. It hit it split first and became a meteorite when it hit the ground. Mm-hmm.
The first part hit in South Africa, and the second part hit in Haiti, or as most people say, refer to that country as Haiti. So what happened was some people went up to investigate it, and they saw some figures or some kind of structures on it, and they got some people from the local universities come and study it, and they said, "Oh, this was number one. It was carved into something that could only make marks on with steel implements." You see what I'm saying? That's
right.
how hard it was. But
right.
What was it that they found? What was it? Was it pictures? Was it writing? It was not writing. It was not the ABC writing. It was pictorial writing, which is half writing and half pictures, like the Medu Neter, which is the holy word of the ancient Egyptians.
Okay, right. So go ahead.
It was that way back 1 million years ago. Yes. So that's not peer reviewed, but that shows you that we have been here far longer than any other people on the planet. And we have done so many things that we are still coming from the things that are underneath, not just the ground like this was, but underneath the oceans, pyramids and civilizations that we found, whole cities underneath the oceans, and I mean every ocean on the planet. But they're not letting this information out, just like they're not letting who the first Americans were out. I'm done.
Right. Okay. So the information that you first talked about 250,000 years ago in Central America, I think you said.
Yes.
Okay. So
that's correct.
Where when did that discovery come out?
What, last year?
Okay.
Last year.
And what was it they discovered in Central America?
Yes, it was in Central America. In Mexico, that was.
What was it they discovered in Mexico?
What was it? That was the animal hide.
Okay, the animal hide. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So let me ask you this question. August in August 2019, I interviewed you. I think it was August 21st. Yeah. I interviewed you because we were dealing with the 400th year anniversary of August 20th, 1619 in Virginia. And you and I talked about how, even though that date is important, African people have been in this land for tens of thousands of years. Before that, we were here before Native Americans came into existence. Talk about who Native Americans are and where they came from.
Okay. The Native American, the ones that we see in the cowboys and Indians,
mm-hmm.
you know, the woo Indians,
right.
You know, the so-called redskins,
mm-hmm.
They come from Africans. A slice between Africans and Asia.
Mm-hmm.
Asians came over a couple, 2,000 or 3,000 years BC. They're the second people to come in to the Americas. And they came from, but they had to come in after the Ice Age ended, because that was a whole block of ice all the way from eastern, western Russia all the way to Soviet Union, all the way across to the top of America. You know, and with the first few, I would say, all of course Canada was frozen, and I think it went down to Ohio all the way around. So, and that was also to continue to Iceland and Greenland and the northern part of western hemisphere. I'm sorry, the eastern hemisphere. I say where they are experiencing all of these things way back when there was an ice age. And the ice age comes and ends between 9 and 11 and 9,000 years ago, and that's when they could cross over. So, number one, there were no, as I mentioned before, none of these people were in existence before the Africans were there for not millions, but tens, hundreds of thousands of years. Did you have a question?
Yeah. Which ice age are you referring to?
The last ice age.
You talking about the worm ice age?
From 115 to, right.
Okay.
From 115,000 years ago when it hit, and then it said between 11 and 7,000 years ago, it started to melt.
Okay. So the Worm Ice Age, WURM, the Worm Ice Age. Okay, go ahead,
The
continue.
worm, exactly. Exactly. So what was it?
The Worm Ice Age, and then starting to melt about 12,000 years ago.
What's that?
You said, where were you? I said you were talking about the Worm Ice Age and the ice starting to melt 12,000 years ago or so.
Yeah, exactly. Well, so when they come over, when the Asians come over, they had already been mixed with the Europeans, who were well, first of all, let me start with the Europeans, white folks. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
When the Ice Age hit, before it hit 115,000 years ago, there was nothing on the planet except for black folks. And I'm talking about in every single portion of this planet, every continent. All right. Now, when the Ice Age hits, and these people go into a frenzy. And some of them got out of there, but others stayed. The ones who stayed, the weather modified their bodies after 100 and some thousand years. You know, they lost the fat on their behinds. Okay, their noses, instead of having those large nostrils, which was, if you take a breath in at 15 below zero, it would freeze your lungs. You know, the nose is got longer and narrower, so that when they could breathe in the air, the air would not go down and chill and freeze their lungs. It would warm with the air. Okay.
So you're talking. Right. So you're talking about adapting to the environment. What Professor Kaba Kamene calls it biological climatology. So your body adapts to the environment over a course of thousands of years. Okay, go ahead, continue.
Yeah. And because they did not have that sunshine, that rich, luscious sunshine, you can get vitamin D and vitamin
D3.
Different things.
Yep.
Exactly. Then they started losing the amount of melanin that they had in their bodies. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So when that happens, after the Ice Age ends, that is a different, and it's not a different race, because there's no such thing as race. Only one race, and that was the human beings. Okay.
Right.
So these folks who have lost the color and other things, after the ice melts, they start going different places. And the first place they went was down to the from northern Europe. They started coming down into the middle part of Europe, or let's say into England and Germany and those countries.
Mm-hmm.
And slowly they interbred with the Africans, and their children were the first Asians. Okay, the first Asians. So when you, after hundreds, tens and 20s and 30s and 50,000 years later, the Asians are developed as a so-called race, which is not correct, with a group of people who have the slanted eyes, who have the not white skin and not black skin, but in between skin. They have all had the long straight hair. They come over after the Ice Age ends. They're able to move from Eastern China across the Bering Strait into and this is because of the ice-free quarter now, because of the way the world was proceeding up again, and they come into Canada, and then slowly come down into the Americas.
Mm-hmm.
And these people start when they hit to the Americas, there's nothing but Africans there. They started sharing their bloods together, and that is when you get the so-called red man, or the American Indians.
So what we look at is Asians coming into the Americas about 3000 BC, intermixing with the Africans who were already here. Now, in your book, The First Americans Were Africans, Documented Evidence, and the various interviews, you talk about the Khoisan. And you talk about the Khoisan being here in the land we call the United States of America, going back at least 51,700 years ago. Talk about the Khoisan and who they are.
Okay, the Khoisan are are the Khoisan and the Anu. Okay? They were the first Africans to come, to come into the Americas. And we're talking about at least 250 to 350,000 years ago. All right. And these are the little people.
Mm-hmm. The short statured people.
And I don't like to use the word, but just so people understand, little people they're the pygmies.
Right. So in European anthropology and archaeology, they derisively refer to them as pygmies, but these are the Twa or the Ainu or the Khoisan. That's who we're talking about, coming from Southern Africa. And they go all around the world. They go all around the world.
Around the place.
Yep. Go ahead, bro.
Yes. Not just Southern Avenue, but then all over the Nile. And, they expand all over Africa. And then they expand to up to Europe and Asia and then over into the Americas. Mm-hmm. And some of them, before, after the Ice Age, some of them come across the Atlantic as well.
Right. Okay. So you have the Khoisan who are here for tens of thousands of years, and they intermix with the Asians who come here around 3000 BC. And then what? Mm-hmm. And then what happens after that? Who? The offspring. Go ahead.
Right. Their offspring become the so-called red men.
Okay, the Native who we've been taught to call Native Americans, right? So
the Native Americans, yes.
Okay, now the other part of the story is that you have groups of African people who get reclassified as Native American when European settlers come here as well.
Absolutely.
That's the other part of the story, which deals with where part of that population went. So you talk about, I think it's around page 67 of your book, you talk about how Captain John Smith talked about being captured by a group of Black Indians. Okay, talk about that for a minute.
Well, he came there and his eyes, I'm sure, bugs. They didn't know that they were going to hit those Black Indians. They thought they were going to hit the red man. When they saw them, they probably freaked out. And, the brothers weren't with it. So, and we're talking about John Smith now. We're talking about the Vikings.
Page 65. About, page 65 of your book. Go ahead.
Columbus.
Mm-hmm. Right.
You talking about before Columbus?
Well, no, this is after. This is in 1607. Page 65 of your book, John Smith and Black Indians. And let me just read the first caption, the first paragraph. In 1607, the Englishman Captain John Smith built the first permanent Caucasian settlement in North America in Jamestown, Virginia. While building the settlement, Captain John Smith made contact with the Powhatan tribe. The Powhatans were part of the Algonquin speakers, who were the largest group of Indians in Virginia as late as the time Captain John Smith arrived. There were more than 10,000 Algonquin in Virginia alone before the colonists arrived. So talk about that briefly. We're coming up on a break in about 5 minutes. Go ahead.
Yeah, I would say that the Algonquins were one of the largest groups of Indians, so-called Indians, in the Americas, and they spread out all over. And they were brown skinned, and some were lighter and some were darker. It's like now today.
Right.
But what I am trying to tell everyone today, that the first people on the planet, the first people anywhere and everywhere, were Black folks.
Right.
And have you seen the people don't see in Africa? They still have some tribal dances, and they're wearing feathers in their hair.
Say repeat that again. Your voice is a little muffled. Repeat that again. What'd you say?
Okay. All right. In some of the ceremonies and things in Africa today, they are working. They are wearing not just war bonnets, but feathers in their hair and things that are very close to being war bonnets. And we can see from their dress, we can see from the way they dance, we can see from the rituals, all these things are spilled over into America that can be found in the Americas. The exact same ceremonies and things they're doing in Southwestern America, in Northeastern America, in Canada, and even spilling down into the Central America and down into South America.
Right.
Black folks were everywhere, like I said, in every continent on the planet, including all over America, the Americas.
Exactly. So why do you think what I explain to people is that we have to understand the chronology of this history, and we can't just look at the past 500 years. We have to look at least the last 50,000 years, because what some people mistakenly think is because African people were here going back tens of thousands of years ago before the transatlantic slave trade took place. They think the transatlantic slave trade didn't happen. And it's like, no, you have to understand a chronology of history. And then at the same time that the transatlantic slave trade is happening, if we're looking at we're looking at the 1500s, 1600s and all, you have multiple things happening at the same time. You know, you have the African Moors who were conquered by the Spaniards, some of them being enslaved, taken into Spanish territories. You have Native Americans, yes, some of them being taken from this land into England later, going into the 1600s. Okay, going not 1500s, but going into the 1600s. Right. You have that taking place. You have the transatlantic slave trade. You have Africans being taken out of Africa, taken into the Americas, taken into European countries. You have multiple things happening around the same time. So absolutely, we can't just look at this as being linear. Right. We can't just look at this history as being linear. OK, let's see. We have, I think, 2 or 3 minutes before the break as well. So tell us the title. Did you tell us the title of your new book that's coming out September 2020?
Yes, it was the first American Africans revisited and expanded.
Okay, the first Americans were Africans revisited and expanded. About how many pages is in the book?
Yes. Just over 400.
Just over 400. Any idea what the price range is going to be? Somebody, Eric on Facebook was asking what the price range is going to be.
Yes, the same as the old one. $49.95. I'm not going up on people. I want to be a book that folks can afford. Not something with $2,000.
Right.
Books are selling my books for.
Right.
You know.
Right. Okay. So about $39.99. Okay. Excellent. Exactly. Exactly. Do you have? Can people donate to you if they want to help with the production of the book or anything like that? Are you accepting donations?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Go ahead, get that information.
Without the donations, I don't have any way to make money.
Right.
You know?
Right.
Until this book comes out. Okay. Then what's it? The money you get from the government every few months. Whatever, it's minuscule. Minuscule.
How can people donate to you through PayPal? How can people donate to you through PayPal? How are you accepting donations? Give people your information so they can send donations.
Okay. Well, I'll give them my address.
Go ahead.
My address is 1923 Dyerly, Deyerle Road, Southwest. And it has to be two S period W period because there are 2 Dyerly roads, and that's Roanoke, Roanoke, Virginia, 24018.
Okay, give that one more time, and then I know we got to go to break. Give that one more time and give everything clearly.
1923 Dyerly Road. It's D-E-Y, D as in David, E-Y. Erle Road, Southwest, Roanoke, Virginia, 24018.
24018. Okay. And who do they make the check or money order out to?
Right. To David Imhotep, Imhotep.
Okay.
Now, to be legal, probably they should use my slave name, which is David Jones, J-O-N-E-S.
Okay. All right.
I never like that name, but I haven't legally changed it yet.
Okay. So are you accepting donations through PayPal?
I have to get that up again. Yes, I am through PayPal.
Oh, when you get the information, let me know. We'll get that to everybody. Okay. Okay, stand by. You got a few more minutes. We're coming up on a break. You got a few more minutes. I want to hold you over. We'll go to this other discovery, this other article. We may be able to squeeze in a few questions from the listening audience. Also, you got a few more minutes?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I've got hours for you, Michael. You're doing a phenomenal show and service to our people, brother.
All right. Thanks, man. All right. Stand by, everybody. Hey, we're speaking with Dr. David Imhotep, author of the groundbreaking book that came out in 2011, The First Americans Were Africans, Documented Evidence. It has 713 footnotes, thoroughly documenting the African presence of African people in North, Central, and South America, and specifically in the land we call the United States of America, going back at least 51,700 years ago. When we come back, we'll talk about this new discovery. CNN has an article from July 26. A new DNA study offers insight into the horrific story of the transatlantic slave trade. Listen to the African History Network show right here on 9:10 a.m. Superstation, the Future Radio. I'm Michael Imhotep. We'll be back in a few minutes. Stand by, everybody. Stand by. We're on mandatory commercial break here. We're broadcasting on 9:10 a.m. the Superstation, WFDF in Detroit. We've got, okay, let's see here. Call-in number.
Enjoy our hefty.
Okay, can you all hear me? You should be able to hear me, SB. Can you all hear me? You should be able to hear me. Okay, the call-in number is 313-778-7600, 313-778-7600. Okay. Yeah, I don't know why you can't hear SB. Okay, good. All right, everybody stand by. We're on commercial break, mandatory commercial break for the radio station. We'll be back in a couple minutes. Also, if you like this type of information, you could donate to the African History Network. This helps support the African History Network, helps support this show. I got to buy a new damn laptop because this laptop getting on my last nerve. PayPal.me/the AHN show, through PayPal, also through Cash App. Cash App is better. Cash App, $ the AHN show through Cash App, $ the AHN show through Cash App, or at our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. Click on the yellow donate button, okay? Because I'm trying to juggle through all this stuff and trying to get this taken care of. Okay, we got people on YouTube. How's everybody doing on YouTube as well? Stand by. We're on mandatory commercial break for the radio station. And we're going to have Dr. David Imhotep give his address again. I got to get him. I thought he had PayPal. We got to get him up to speed because it's like, you know, this is like, this is so 20th century, right? Okay. Stand by. Okay. So this, we're going to share some more dealing with this discovery that took place, and it's in the Journal of Nature also. It's this discovery is in the Journal of Nature, came out July 22nd, dealing with the stone tools found in Mexico that date back at least 33,000 years ago. Then we have this other discovery dealing with DNA and dealing with the transatlantic slave trade. We'll talk about that in just a minute here. Okay, stand by. Okay, how you doing, Cheryl, SB, Ronald? On YouTube, we have LL Lewis, Caleb, bunch of people on the YouTube. Welcome back to the African History Network show right here on 9:10 a.m. the Superstation of Future Radio. I'm your host, Brother Michael Imhotep. It is Sunday, July 26, 2020. And we are live. We're speaking with my friend, Dr. David Imhotep, author of the book, The First Americans Were Africans, Documented Evidence. The First Americans Were Africans, Documented Evidence. I think this is my 14th time interviewing him. We have a lot of our previous interviews archived. I even had him on Roland Martin's nationally syndicated radio show when I used to guest host Roland's nationally syndicated radio show. I brought him on there, brought Dr. Claude Anderson on Roland's show as well. So we're talking about Dr. David Imhotep's new book that's coming out September 2020. The First Americans Were Africans Revisited. We're talking about this new discovery that came out this past week in Mexico, dealing with stone tools found in a cave in Mexico that date back to up to 33,000 years ago. And this is pushing back the date of humans first entering North America. Is causing them to have to push the dates back. I talk about that, the deeper they dig, the blacker the planet gets, the more research they do, the older we get, Dr. David Imhotep. And when these archaeological discoveries come out, man, they keep having to push the dates back, man. Juvenile had the song Back That Thing Up. They keep having to back that thing up. They keep having to back the dates up, man. When these archaeological discoveries come out, because I read them, I study this stuff, and they're saying, man, look, if you NBC News, see what I noticed is that on MSNBC, they don't put that stuff on MSNBC, but it's on NBC. It's on NBCnews.com, Washington Post, New York Times, National Geographic. It's in print. It's online. All these studies, that stuff is there.
Is that right?
Yes, all that stuff. And then when those studies come out, man, it causes them to have to rethink everything. If you look up, you and I talked about this study before that came out from this was 2018, I think it was 2017. NBCnews.com. Check this out. We're older than we thought. New find pushes human origin back 100,000 years. This is NBC News, Washington Post, New York Times. I read the articles. They all have this stuff. This stuff ain't hidden. Okay, check this out. Now, this was the study in my. Go ahead.
In schools, you don't see that.
Hold on. Say that again.
You don't see that in books, in schools, and things of that nature.
Well, one of the reasons why is because the books are out. The books are outdated. One, two. This is like cutting edge stuff. Okay. So the information is coming out faster than they can update the books. But teachers can take these articles in. Teachers can take these articles in, and you can bring me in because when I come in, I come citing white sources. And I dared them to defy that stuff because I can show you what white archaeologists and paleontologists say. But check this out. We're gonna go back to this. We're going to go back to this, the new discovery in just a minute. But I just want to share this with everybody. This came out June 7th, 2017. Modern humans evolved much earlier than previously thought, researchers reported Wednesday. New discoveries at a rich site in Morocco, which is in North Africa. Morocco, show modern humans were hunting and probably cooking game animals 300,000 years ago, 300,000 years ago, 100,000 years earlier than scientists had believed until now. The site near Morocco's coast and the city of Marrakech has always yielded interesting human remains, but they had been dated to around 40,000 years ago. New discoveries and new dating methods show that, in fact, many of the bones belong to modern Homo sapiens, and they lived as far back as, hold on to your seats and your hat and your shoes, 300,000 or 350,000 years ago. Now, this is from 3 years ago. This discovery came out 3 years ago. Okay, those that took my online course, Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Ma'afa, Understanding the Transatlantic Slave Trade, what they didn't teach you in school, we dealt with this discovery because I deal with these archaeological discoveries in my online course. The article goes on to say the earliest previous Homo sapiens bones date back 195,000 years ago, and they're from clear across the continent in modern day Ethiopia. So what this discovery is saying is that Africans migrated earlier than the scientists originally thought. Go ahead, brother.
Correct. Absolutely correct.
So when
you see,
go ahead.
Those dates I gave you are jive with exactly what what you just said. Same type of thing.
Right.
200, 300 something years ago.
Right. So they talk about the various discoveries, bless you. They talk about the various discoveries at this excavation site. They say the site has been under excavation since the 1960s, but a team recently found a new layer along with flint tools, F-L-I-N-T, flint tools, not to be confused with MC Breed, not to be confused with MC Breed, F-L-I-N-T, Michigan, but along with flint tools that have been heated by fire. Pieces of bone and skull from 5 different people are among the new finds. Writing in the journal Nature. Now, the journal Nature is the journal where they have the new discovery that just came out this past Wednesday. Writing in the journal Nature
magazine.
Yep. The scientists argue the skulls belong to clearly modern humans, even if the head shape is a little longer and narrower than those of modern people. OK, so people read. We posted this link here. People read this article, and they say that they have to basically, when these discoveries come out, they say they have to rethink everything. They have to look for evidence. Let me see. The article goes on to say it's not so easy finding ancient human remains unless they are preserved somewhere dry like the desert of North and East Africa. Not much is left of anything after tens of thousands of years. Findings are rare. Each one must be studied intensively to provide evidence about the many species of pre-humans and early modern humans that populated the world. Earlier this year, team. Okay. Then they go on to say the last paragraph says earlier this year, 2017, a team argued they have found evidence that either modern humans or pre-humans were in North America 150,000 years ago. Dude, I'm telling you, they know the truth. They know the truth.
Know the truth, but they can't broadcast it.
Yes. They know the truth.
You say number 45 would like to hear this information.
Man, he's trying to hold on to Confederate monuments, man. He talk about holding on to the past.
You think that's something? That's the drop in the bucket for what we have behind us.
Yes. So if we go back to now, once again, let me give people the name of this article. Name of this article: We're older than we thought. New find pushes human origin back 100,000 years ago. This article is from June 7th, 2017. NBCnews.com, not InfoWars. This ain't InfoWars. This isn't The Onion. And I did a Google search. All the news outlets carried this story. New York Times, Washington Post, National Geographic.
You're not telling people who's writing these articles. These are white folks writing these articles. These are Black Panthers.
These are white folks doing the research and white folks writing the articles, telling what the research found.
Yes.
Yeah, the deeper they dig, the blacker the planet gets, the more research they do, the older we get. Okay, so
absolutely.
So we've got that one, and then I'm looking at it right here because I have thousands of articles bookmarked. New York Times had reported on this. The article from the New York Times was called "Oldest." I'm getting some feedback from your line. Okay, oldest fossils of Homo sapiens found in Morocco, altering history of our species. New York Times.
Thank you.
June 7th, 2017, when I'm telling y'all, when these discoveries come out and they're put in the journal Nature, all the news outlets report on this. Okay. Now, I don't know if Charlemagne the God talks about this. I don't know if, people talking about Jada Pinkett Smith and Kobe and Snoop and Gail and Oprah. I don't know if they talk about this, but this information's out there. All right. Okay. So once again,
you won't see it in the schools.
What'd you say?
You will not see this in the schools today.
Well, this is what we have to do, brother. A lot of people, because of COVID-19, a lot of people are doing their children are doing school online. People are homeschooling. Get these articles and teach this to your children in the homeschool. Get these articles. And if you're a teacher, introduce this stuff. This is New York Times. This is the science section, New York Times. This isn't the opinion section. This is an op-ed. The evidence is there. We have to teach it. Okay, the evidence is there, and when you start laying this evidence out, okay, not saying that we're not dealing with superiority, inferiority, things like this. Let's deal with the evidence. Let's deal with the history. It is what it is. Okay. I want to go to this other article quickly here, because before the break, you talked about the Khoisan. In your book, The First Americans Were Africans, Documented Evidence, you talk about the Khoisan have the oldest DNA on the planet, come from Southern Africa. They're the ancestors to the Ainu and the Twa, and go all around the world. So people that follow me on my Facebook fan page, The African History Network, follow me on YouTube, you know we post articles all the time from face2faceafrica.com. Face, the number 2, face, face2faceafrica.com. They have some fantastic articles. They have an article from October 26, 2018. These native Africans were the original inhabitants of the Philippines. These native Africans were the original inhabitants of the Philippines. Here's what the article says. The Aeta, A-E-T-A, or Agita, not sure I pronounce it, AGTA, people are the indigenous black-skinned people who inhabit the remote and mountainous regions of Luzon, Philippines. The Aeta are under the bracket of Austronesians, groups in Southeast Asia and East Africa that speak languages belonging to the Austronesian language family. And okay, so then they go on to see here. The Aeta are also considered to be negritos, a name given to them by Spanish conquerors. They have dark brown to extremely dark brown skin, kinky and curly hair, which ranges in dark brown to blonde, small noses, dark brown eyes, and possess short height. Okay, so these are African people. The original people of the Philippines. These are African people, and they also have articles dealing with like the Ainu and things like this at face2faceafrica.com. But see, this shows how deep this history is. Go ahead, brother.
That's right. And after all, this shows that Black Lives Matter, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. Once again, the name of that article from face2faceafrica.com. These native Africans were the original inhabitants of the Philippines. And I know my friend Renoko Rashidi has written a lot about the original inhabitants of Asia and things like this, African people being the original inhabitants of Asia, etc. Okay, so if we go back to the article from NBCnews.com that came out July 22nd, 2020, ancient stone tools suggest first people arrived in America earlier than thought. Now, on page 2 of this article, it says the findings published this past Wednesday, in 2 papers in the journal Nature, which include the discovery of the stone tools, challenge the idea that people first entered North America on a land bridge between Siberia and Alaska and an ice-free corridor to the interior of the continent. That's called the Bering Straits. Precise archaeological dating of early human sites throughout North America, including the cave in Mexico, suggests instead that they may have entered along the Pacific coast, according to research. Okay. Then they go on to talk about how the finds were the result of years of careful digging at this cave site in north central Mexico. Let's see here. And then, okay, so, and then they go on to say the tools were found in the deepest layer of sediment they excavated, which dates from up to 33,000 years ago, long before the last ice age, which occurred between 26,000 and 19,000 years ago. Okay, so are they talking about long before the last ice age ended? Which ice age are they referring to?
When it ended. Because it began 115,000 years ago.
Right, the worm ice age. So they're talking about before the last ice age ended, apparently. Okay. Now they go on to say on page 2, the commonly accepted time for the arrival of the first people in North America is about 16,000 years ago. And recent studies estimate it happened up to 18,000 years ago. But the latest discoveries that just came out this past week, and they just saying, oh my God. But the latest discoveries push the date back by more than 10,000 years. Go ahead, brother. You can't handle the truth. Go ahead, brother.
I don't know, sir.
Yeah.
Listen to this man. Please listen to his brothers. He will continue to give you information like this. Please always listen to him.
Mm-hmm. All right. So I want to get your last comments on that article. We're going to go to the next discovery. Can you hear me?
I hear you.
Yeah. I want to get your comment. I want to get your last comments on that article, because we're going to go to the next article. The latest discovery.
Okay, Colin, what's you?
Okay.
You went to so many. Which exactly one are you speaking of? Please?
Hold on, your voice is a little muffled. Say that again. Okay. Say that again.
Okay. Which date were you speaking about?
Well, on page 2 of this article from NBC News dealing with the discovery that came out this past Wednesday, they said the commonly accepted time for the arrival of the first people in North America is about 16,000 years ago. And recent studies estimate it happened up to 18,000 years ago. But the latest discoveries push the date back by more than 10,000 years.
That is first grade writing. Let's go to the doctorals that you spoke about before. Mm-hmm. The 250 or 350,000 year marks just pushes all of that stuff that they're figuring down in the toilet. Mm-hmm. It's ridiculous. We have concrete evidence in Central, and we're talking about it's peer-reviewed evidence.
Right.
Between 250,000 years ago. Not to mention what they found in iTunes a million years ago. Come on.
Right. Come on. So there's obviously there's obviously people in denial. Okay. Now, I talked to you. I talked to you before about this other discovery, and I'm just going to throw this in here. National Geographic. I'm looking at my bookmarks. Washington Post, NBC News. Right, 130,000 years ago. Now this blew everybody away. This discovery came out in April of 2017. Let's go to NBC News. Mastodon bone findings could upend our understanding of human history. Paleontologists have dug up a 130,000-year-old mastodon skeleton that looks like it was smashed apart by humans. But they found it in America, where we are right now, where people were not supposed to have arrived for another 100,000 years. This is not InfoWars, people. This is NBC News, Washington Post, New York Times. I read all our National Geographic. They all have articles reporting this finding. The researchers say they think early humans must have come to America much, much earlier than anyone ever thought. They suggest that other scientists start looking for evidence of people and places they never bothered looking before. Man, I'm telling you, they keep having to push the dates back. They keep having to back that thing up. Okay.
And these are things above the ground. Wait till they start going down in the oceans and looking at those things, those pyramids and those civilizations, and every ocean on this planet. Every ocean.
So let me ask you this question. Most African Americans, unfortunately, think that we first came to this land conquered and shackled and chained, conquered by Europeans. How should this information, how should this evidence, proper documentation ends all conversation. How should this evidence change our the way we see ourselves. How it should give us a paradigm shift. How should it change how we see reality and how we see ourselves?
Now, you're speaking of people in general or the Black population?
For African Americans specifically.
African Americans specifically?
We do have to go to break in a moment.
Can you hear me?
Sorry?
Yeah, for African Americans specifically.
Yeah.
Can you?
Yeah, specifically.
Well, hold on.
Absolutely.
Oh, you have to go to break. Okay, I thought you said we're breaking up. Okay, sorry. Stand by. We'll hold that for the other side of the break. We got to go to mandatory break. You listen to the African History Network show right here on 910 a.m. the Superstation Future Radio. I'm speaking with Dr. David Imhotep, author of The First Americans Were Africans Documented Evidence. We'll be back in a few minutes. Stand by, everybody. I forgot we got to go to break 20 minutes after the hour. I forgot. It's just time's just going by. Okay, stand by, everybody. Stand by. All right, you listen to the African History Network show. Taking a break. We're speaking with Dr. David Imhotep. Hold on. See, I talked to Dr. David Imhotep, man, we just go. So we're doing live radio. Stand by. We're going to get to some of these other topics dealing with dumbass Donald Trump and all that stuff. How's everybody doing? Doris, Gaines, The Seam, Caleb on YouTube, LL. Texas said, September, hurry up and get here. Okay, everybody share this broadcast on your social media platforms. Stand by. We'll be back in a few minutes here. Stand by, everybody. Those just tuning in, listen to the African History Network show right here on 910 a.m. the Superstation. Future Radio, and on our Facebook fan page, the African History Network. We're on a mandatory commercial break. Also, if you want to advertise with the African History Network, email us at customerservice@africanhistorynetwork.com. Customerservice@africanhistorynetwork. Okay. customerservice@africanhistorynetwork.com. All right, welcome back to the African History Network show right here on 910 a.m. the Superstation, the Future Radio. Hey, I'm your host, Brother Michael Imhotep. It is Sunday, July 26, 2020, and we are also broadcasting on our Facebook fan page, The African History Network, The African History Network, and my YouTube channel, Michael Imhotep, IMHOTEP. If you'd like this type of information, once again, you can donate to the African History Network, $ the AHN show through Cash App, $ the AHN show through Cash App, or through PayPal, paypal.me/the AHN show, paypal.me/the AHN show. That helps us to keep broadcasting, keep doing the research, stay on the air. Right now, I'm working on buying a new, more powerful laptop so I can do more of what I need to do, especially with these broadcasts. Okay, we're speaking with Dr. David Imhotep, author of the book, The First Americans Were Africans Documented Evidence. And his new book comes out in September 2020, The First Americans Were Africans Revisited. Okay, so right before the break, brother, I was asking you, with all these archaeological discoveries coming out, and scientists, archaeologists, paleontologists saying they have to push the dates back of when humans, Homo sapiens, first came to the Americas, first came to this land we call the United States of America. And we know these people were African people. Most of the time they don't want to say that, but these were African people. Okay. How should that change our paradigm? How should that change how we see ourselves when many African Americans think that we first came to this land conquered and shackled and changed by Europeans? Even though the transatlantic slave trade did happen, 1619 did happen, right? We were here tens of thousands of years before that. How should all these discoveries change how we see ourselves and how we see the world?
2 words: self-respect.
Self-respect.
Some of us are ashamed of our color, ashamed of our beautiful lips, ashamed of our hair, of our noses. You've seen black folks put like semen, different things of that on their face and straighten their hair and do all these type of things because they have been brainwashed by the schools that we grew up in. I was a part of it. I went through that myself, and I didn't see it until probably in my early teens. That's what really was happening. It was really coming to us. And then when I got into my studies, in undergrad and then graduate school and then my PhD, I saw all kinds of different things that are not being taught to our people even today. So we must show these folks that we have a place on this planet. We have done phenomenal things, just as good or better than other so-called racist fleas. This race stuff is just ridiculous. We're all brothers and sisters in the same planet.
Well, okay? We're dealing with the human race.
We have to. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, we're dealing with the human race because the concept of race is a false construct, and that largely comes from people like Dr. Johann Friedrich Blumenbach, who coined the term Caucasian in 1779, Dr. Carl von Linnaeus, people like that, who stratify humanity into categories based upon places of origin, phenotype, hair texture, etc. It's a race is a false construct.
Excellent.
Yes.
Audience, do you hear information that this man is giving you?
Right. Okay. So
there's no one else that does this, man.
What are other people that do that? I'm not the only one. No. I'm not Dr. Linda Jeffries, Professor James Small, Professor Kaba Hiawatha Kamene. There are others that do it. I'm not the only one. So I don't want to say I'm the only one. But anyway.
No, we undercover, bro. We undercover.
Okay, so very quickly, I want to go to this other article here. CNN had this article, BBC News, other outlets. A new DNA study offers insight into the horrific story of the transatlantic slave trade. Now, this was Sunday, July 26, 2020. Much of what we know about the horrors of slavery in the Americas comes from historical records, but new research shows that evidence of the slave trade's atrocities can also be found in the DNA of African Americans, deoxyribonucleic acid, the DNA of African Americans. A study conducted by the consumer genetics company 23andMe. So we see the commercials for 23andMe, trace your ancestry. This study was published this past Thursday, which I think was the 24th, July 24th, in the American Journal of Human Genetics. Okay, all this stuff, people, is posted in the journals: Journal of Nature, Journal of American Journal of Human Genetics. This is not hidden. It's right there in plain sight. Okay, this study, published Thursday in the American Journal of Human Genetics, offers some new insight into the consequences of the transatlantic slave trade, from the scale at which enslaved Black women, African women, were raped by their white masters, to the less documented slave trade that occurred within the Americas. It's one of the largest studies of its kind, thanks in part to the massive database of 23andMe customers that researchers were able to recruit consenting participants from. The 23andMe, they were able to recruit consenting participants from. The article goes on to say on page 2, the authors compiled genetic data from more than 50,000 people from the Americas, Western Europe, and Atlantic Africa. And they compared it against the historical records of where enslaved people were taken from and where they were enslaved. Together, the data and records tell a story about the complicated roots of the African diaspora in the Americas. For the most part, the DNA was consistent with what the documents show. But the study authors said there were some notable differences. Okay. And then they go on to talk about some of the things they found. Here's some of what they found and what it reveals about the history of slavery. For instance, one of the things they talk about, and I want to get your response to this: in the U.S. and parts of the Caribbean colonized by the British, African women contributed to the gene pool about 1.5 to 2 times more than African men. In Latin America, that rate was even higher. Enslaved women contributed to the gene pool in Central America, the Latin Caribbean, and parts of South America about 13 to 17 times more. To the extent that people of African descent in the Americas and to the extent that people of African descent in the Americas had European ancestry, they were more likely to have white fathers in their lineage than white mothers in all regions except the Latin Caribbean and Central America. Okay, brother. So I sent you this article earlier today. I said we want to talk about it. So what's your take on this?
Well, my take, you mentioned many different things on exactly. Let's break them down into categories. Give me a category for instance.
Well, just in general, the research dealing with DNA from 50,000 people, when we look at analyzing this gene pool, comparing it to the records of the transatlantic slave trade, learning more, using DNA to learn more about the transatlantic slave trade, and this deals with the rape of African women as well. I mean, this is deep. This is just page 2. I'm just on page 2 out of 6 pages, from this article. So all these articles I print up, man, I'm sitting here. I got like hundreds of art. Well, I probably got close to 1,000 printed up because I'm looking at 6, 7, 8, 9 file folders full of articles. So yeah,
I'm scared of you.
You ought to be scared of me, man. but go ahead and give us your, because I sent you the I teach online courses also, but
all of these things that you're putting them all together and just making them very, very transparent.
Right.
And the best of the best can come out, and you can write the most phenomenal book that I've ever. I mean, you put all these things together, man, it's going to be a phenomenal book. You've got to do that. Please, I beg you.
Yeah, I got to put my book out, but
on this guy until he writes his book.
I got to put my book out, but this ain't about me. This is about you. So go ahead and give me your comments on this article. Go ahead.
It's about us. Go ahead.
It's about us. Yeah. Go ahead and give me your comments about this article.
I'd have to break it down. You give me so much information. I don't know what term, man. The article. Give me the major point. Give me one major point article, and we'll go from each.
Okay, so a study conducted by the consumer genetics company 23andMe, published Thursday in the American Journal of Human Genetics, offers new insight into the consequences of the transatlantic slave trade, from the scale at which enslaved African women were raped by their white masters to the less documented slave trade that occurred within the Americas. And so we're talking about. Go ahead.
I got a comment on that.
Go ahead.
And that is that because of that slave trade, there were a lot of I would say in between babies who were half white and
half white and what?
And
okay, half white and half black. You broke up for a minute. Go ahead. You still there? Hello? Can you hear me?
Can you repeat that, or should I continue?
Yeah. Go ahead. Repeat that because you dropped out for a minute.
I can hear you.
Yeah, go ahead and repeat that. You dropped out for a minute.
Okay, got you. The amount of miscegenation that's going on today, okay, and this is not. I believe I mentioned this again before, but I have to do it again, and that is that they're saying, and this is white scientists, that from the amount of miscegenation going on all over the planet, that by the year 2050, there will be no more white skin on this planet.
You were telling me about that. It was a study or something that came out. That you I haven't had time to research that. Now I do know that by the year 2043, U.S. Census Bureau put out a memo June of 2018 that said that white people have a negative birth rate in 26 states out of 50. That was in 2018. And it's predicted by at first 2045, now 2043, white people will no longer be the majority population in the United States. And this is what the whole fear of the browning of America is about the three, when white people are no longer the majority population in this country. And not all white people fear that, but you got a lot of them, and many of them are Donald Trump supporters, who fear that coming. Okay, go ahead and continue.
Fear of the Black Planet.
Fear of the Black Planet. Yep. Fear of the Black Planet. Yep. Go ahead and finish your thought.
So it's just terrible. I would hate to be in the mind of a Klansman today. I mean, they've got to be very, 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 very confused and upset. You know.
Absolutely.
But getting back to our folks, we have to educate the Black folks on their own history so that it will change them. It will change their mind. It will change their way of looking at things, you know? It will change so many things. You know, when all of this finally comes out, all these different things you're talking about, we've got to get those into the schools. And I'm going to tell you something. I won't say any names, but I will give you a school, and that is Morehouse.
Mm-hmm.
And Morehouse, which is a Black school, okay? There was a professor there, brilliant professor, who was teaching Black history, and he started getting into it, and into the type of things you're talking about, and they fired this man.
He started teaching Black history at Morehouse?
Talking about Morehouse. Yeah, Morehouse, the school that my dad went to. You know, Morehouse College, my favorite school in the world.
So,
Morehouse College.
What period of time? What year was this? What period of time was this? What decade? What decade was this?
This was just a couple years, a year, maybe 2 years ago.
So,
2 years ago,
at Morehouse College, go ahead and say that again.
Yes.
At Morehouse College, there was what?
There was a Morehouse, which is a Black college. Okay.
Mm-hmm. HBCU.
There was a Black professor who was getting into the type of conversation that we have just talked about.
Okay.
And because of that, he was fired from that college. So this is not only happening with white on Black prejudice, it's Black on Black prejudice as well.
Now, was he citing some of your information, some of your research?
You know what I said? There's a difference between Black people and Negroes.
Right. Was he citing some of your information, some of your research from your book? Was he citing that, or was he just dealing with the transatlantic slave trade, et cetera?
No, et cetera. Wasn't anything to do with my information.
Okay, so he's just dealing with the transatlantic slave trade in general, and African women being raped, just slavery. He's just dealing with the history, and he got fired for dealing with that history.
No, because he started talking about things like subjects we have been talking about for the last couple hours.
Okay. Wow.
Nothing about the slave trade and what we're talking about.
Okay.
Because they're not allowed. I mean, they're afraid their masters are going to take away their money and get rid of school.
Right. Exactly. I just want to go on to page 3 and look at these two short paragraphs. So the article goes on to say, from this new study that just came out this past week, the U.S. and other former British colonies generally forced enslaved people to have children in order to maintain workforces, which could explain why the children of an enslaved woman were more likely to have an enslaved father. Segregation in the U.S. could also be a factor, the authors theorized. By contrast, the researchers point to the presence of racial whitening policies in several Latin American countries, which brought in European immigrants with the aim of diluting the African race. Such policies as well as higher mortality rates of enslaved men could explain the disproportionate contributions to the gene pool by enslaved women, the authors wrote. Okay. Yeah, this is a deep article. People really need to read it. This is from this article is from CNN.com. It's about a study that just came out this past Thursday. A new DNA study offers insight into the horrific story of the transatlantic slave trade. Okay, brother, go ahead with your final comments, and then also let people know how they can donate to you as well. Somebody on YouTube asked for the address again where they can donate to you.
Okay. My final comment is to please listen to this young man every time he gives a show, because he gives incredible information that you're not going to find all in one place anywhere that I know of.
Right.
So
right.
I'm amazed. Well, and I want a copy of this show, please, because you went on. I mean,
okay.
Oh boy.
Yeah, I'll get this to you.
He's out there that should be on the antennas, bro. So
you said I should be on what?
Please. Antennas. You have. I'm out of words. We need more brothers like you, but we need you,
right?
Especially.
Thank you. Okay.
Continue what you're doing and be safe and don't say the wrong thing, because they're killing black leaders out here. So.
Right. Well, I'm still alive, so I take precautions, but I'm still alive. So I'm getting emails from a couple people here that subscribe to my email newsletter. I send out an email blast. Once again, people sign up for our email newsletter. Text the word Kemet, KEMET, to 22828 to sign up for our email newsletter. Text the word Kemet, KEMET, to 22828 to sign up for our email newsletter. Also go to our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. Right on the homepage, you can sign up for our email newsletter. But people are emailing me, asking me, how can they get your new book when it comes out? How can they get your new book when it comes out?
Okay, you gave me. I gave you the address. Okay, even better than that would be to contact me through my email, which is far easier.
Okay, so
David, my name.
Go ahead.
David. Okay, David. Period. Imhotep at gmail.com. That is the easiest way to get it. And wait until late September, possibly October, and it will definitely be out by then.
So it's not going to be at Amazon.com?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
I'm not sure yet.
Okay, but people can definitely email you, david.imhotep, IMHOTEP, at gmail.com. Yeah. And they can definitely find out from you that way. And then also, I mean, if you contact me, I'll find out from here probably before anybody, and I'll let you know as well. When his book comes out, we're going to bring him back for an interview, and we'll do a Facebook Live broadcast where we'll do it through Zoom, where you can actually see his slideshow. I will have him do a slideshow presentation, and you can actually see that. So we'll do that for you as well. Okay. And then you're going to get your website back up. And then when you get the PayPal up and running so people can send donations, let me know, because we'll get donations that way. Give people, once again, your address. People on YouTube are asking for your address where they can send donations. Give them that information again, please.
Okay, 1923 Dyerle, it's Deyerle Road, Southwest, Roanoke, Roanoke, Virginia, 24018.
All right. Okay, brother. Well, look, man, you have a good night, and it's always good talking to you. And when more discoveries come out, brother, I'll send you those articles. Okay.
Likewise, and quite a few times, I mean, almost monthly, people ask me if you and I are related.
Right.
and because of our name.
Nah, no relation. We are, but being that you
are in the of,
we are in the what?
Right. We are related, but by soul.
By soul, right.
What we're trying to do for our people. That's how we're related.
Right. But you are a cousin of Dr. Ishaka Musa Barashango, who's an ancestor now. Dr. Ishaka Musa Barashango, correct?
Right.
Right. And
I don't know about.
huh?
It could be. I'm not sure. We're not sure yet.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay, brother. You have a good night. Okay. Take care. Peace.
Okay, you do the same thing. Thanks for inviting me. Bye-bye.
Okay, no problem. Hotep. All right, everybody. That was Dr. David Imhotep, author of the book, The First Americans Were Africans. Documented evidence. You've heard me talk about it before. We're talking about two new discoveries that came out this past week, and we'll post the articles once again. We see the article from NBCnews.com. Ancient stone tools suggest first people arrived in America earlier than thought. They keep having to back that thing up, push the dates back. Okay. Did we disconnect his call? JT, disconnect Dr. David Imhotep's call. All right. And then also CNN.com, a new DNA study offers insight into the horrific story of the transatlantic slave trade. Okay. Either that or put them on hold. All right. Thanks. Okay. So we'll post those links to those articles once again at AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. And then, also, we'll post it on YouTube as well. Okay. All right. I want to get into some of these other topics here, and time is running away. We're going to continue the broadcast after the top of the hour. We'll continue on my social media platforms, the African History Network, and on YouTube at Michael Imhotep. So follow us there. We'll continue for a little while longer after the show's over with, on 910 AM, the Superstation WFDF. I want to give an update. Let's see here. Where do we want to go? Let's look at, well, since we're talking about history, let's look at, you got two idiotic Republican senators, okay? Two idiotic Republican senators. One is Senator Tom Cotton, okay? Senator Tom Cotton from Arkansas, okay? Hey, JT, disconnect Dr. David Imhotep's call, please. We're done with the interview. The Griot.com had an article about this, and Senator Tom Cotton introduced a bill to prohibit the funding from the federal government to teach the 1619 Project in schools. Okay, he introduced a bill for that. GOP senator introduces bill to stop federal funding for schools teaching 1619 Project. You know how much hatred you have to have for African Americans to do something like this. I have some disagreements with the 1619 Project. Okay, I wouldn't introduce a bill to block federal funding. Okay, but at the same time, this white supremacist, Senator Tom Cotton, Republican of Arkansas, who needs to be voted out of office, at the same time, he doesn't want to change the names of Confederate of military bases named after Confederate soldiers, etc. Republican Senator Tom Cotton introduced a piece of legislation on Thursday that will prohibit the use of federal funds to teach the award-winning New York Times piece, The 1619 Project, in K through 12 schools. This is an example of how elections have consequences. I've talked many times about senators in other states, and I have dumbasses on social media say things like, what do I care about a senator in that state? Fool, do you understand how the Senate works? Come on. Do you understand how the Senate works? Go to senate.gov and read the rules of the U.S. Senate. Okay. Under the proposed Saving American History Act of 2020, all this stuff impacts us. Politics is the legal distribution of scarce wealth, power, and resources, and the writing of laws, statutes, ordinances, amendments, and treaties, the adoption, interpretation, and enforcement. Under the proposed Saving American History Act of 2020, schools that teach the curriculum, which covers the early history of slavery in America, would be ineligible for federal professional development grants. Okay. Politics is the legal distribution of scarce wealth, power, and resources. The annual federal budget is about $5 trillion. It's a reallocation of resources, educational funding to fight environmental racism, all different types of things like this. Senator Tom Cotton, Republican from Arkansas, defended the controversial bill in a statement to the National Review on Thursday. Now, this article came out from thegrio.com. Other news outlets had this article. Okay. He's a staunch Donald Trump supporter. Imagine that. Couldn't see that coming. July 23rd, 2020 is when this article came out. Quote, the New York Times 1619 project is a racially divisive, revisionist account of history that denies the noble principles of freedom and equality on which our nation was founded. Freedom and equality founded for who? Quote, not a single cent, CENT, of federal funding should go to indoctrinate young Americans with this left-wing garbage. This is what this demon said. This is somebody. Now, let's go back. See, Donald Trump wants to, I'm about to set it off. What time is it? 10:52. Okay. Top of the hour. I can cuss. Now, this fool now, Donald Trump likes to talk about the First Step Act. Okay. First Step Act has only released about 6,000 people from prison. We're glad they're out of prison. Okay. First Step Back is not what Donald Trump plays it out to be. 1. 2, Donald Trump is not for criminal justice reform. 3, Democrats were trying to pass, and even some Republicans were trying to pass the First Step Act in 2015 under President Obama. It was blocked in the U.S. Senate. Who blocked the First Step Act in the U.S. Senate? Senator Tom Cotton, Republican of Arkansas, and Senator Jefferson Beauregard Sessions III, Republican from Alabama, who then became Donald Trump's first attorney general, because both of them are against criminal justice reform. Go to the Brennan Center and research the First Step Act. These were the two jackasses that blocked the First Step Act under President Obama. But then Donald Trump wants to claim credit for it when he wasn't even the one who was really pushing the First Step Act in the White House. It was actually Jared Kushner, because Jared Kushner's father went to prison, and it was Governor Chris Christie who sent Jared Kushner's father to prison when Governor Chris Christie was a U.S. attorney. The article goes on to say the 1619 project was released in November 2019 and received universal acclaim for its in-depth look at American history and the impact of slavery had on many aspects of American society. Now, it didn't deal with the African presence going back at least 51,700 years. That's one of the problems with the 1619 project. It did talk about 1526 when the Spanish were taking Africans into the territory that's now South Carolina and Georgia. It talked about that. But it didn't deal with how this was our land stolen from us, and we were here before Native Americans came into this. It didn't deal with none of that stuff. Okay. The piece, which was, how much time we have before the break, JT?
There's 3 minutes left.
3 minutes. Thank you. The piece, which was named after the year Europeans first brought African slaves to the U.S. colonies, was created by Nicole Hannah-Jones, who won a Pulitzer Prize, etc. Okay. She's doing all these interviews on MSNBC. Okay. Okay. So the celebrated writer took to Twitter on Thursday afternoon to share her thoughts on Tom Cotton's legislation. She said, quote, couldn't even think of anything to write about this. So here you go. She wrote alongside a tweet of the news quote, addendum, feel like Ida B. Wells is looking down with pride right now, end quote. Okay. So Senator Tom Cotton, this is somebody who writes, who votes on policies and writes policies that impacts every aspect of our lives. Now, several school districts across the country have already incorporated teachings from the 1619 project into its curriculum, including Chicago and Washington, D.C. The New York Times has yet to comment on the bill, but previously announced plans for the project to be taught in public schools. Okay, now you got another genius Republican senator, Senator Ron Johnson, who traffics in all these conspiracy theories. Senator Ron Johnson blocks a bill to make Juneteenth a federal holiday. What? Are you serious? July 23rd, 2020, thegrill.com. The Republican from Wisconsin says it would cost taxpayers $600 million annually. Senator Ron Johnson blocked a bipartisan effort to make Juneteenth a federal holiday because it would cost too much. Senator Ron Johnson made the objection Wednesday, saying the holiday would be a financial strain for taxpayers, the Huffington Post reported. Though he supports a federally recognized day of remembrance to mark the end of slavery in the U.S., he says the price tag attached caused him to stop the bill from advancing. That sounds like he blocked it through unanimous consent, which is a rule in the Senate where a senator can block a bill, unanimous consent. Now, let me ask you a question. If you can't get a Juneteenth bill passed in the Senate that will cost taxpayers allegedly $600 million annually, how the hell are you going to get reparations passed in the Senate? Explain that to me. Because when I bring up unanimous consent, all the hashtag cut the check people, nobody answered the damn question. Now, explain to me, if you can't get a Juneteenth bill passed in the U.S. Senate, do you know how many white people in the Senate got a vote on this? It's only 3 black people in the entire U.S. Senate, and one of them don't even act like it half the time. That's Black Tea Party Republican Senator Tim Scott from South Carolina, who needs to be voted out of office. If you can't get a Juneteenth bill passed, how the hell are you going to get a reparations bill passed? You listen to the African History Network show, 9:10 a.m. the Superstation. Right now, it's correct. Wrong behavior is not over till we win Wakanda forever. Stay tuned for Pastor Mo. We'll talk to you next week. We're going to continue on my social media platforms, okay? Because it's just not getting good, okay? So,
I am Michael Garrett.
All right, let's end that call.
CNS Health.
Just stand by. Hold on. Let me end this call here. See, this is what nobody wants to answer. Hold on just a second. Let me disconnect this damn call. I don't know why he ain't disconnect the call. Stand by, everybody. I'm about to go in overtime. Okay, read this about Senator Ron Johnson from Wisconsin. Just a second here. Stand by on YouTube, stand by on Facebook. Okay, stand by. All right, so this is an article from thegrio.com. GOP Senator Ron Johnson blocks bill to block Juneteenth a federal holiday. So this is from thegrio.com, okay? And usually when a bill is blocked like that, is blocked based upon what's called unanimous consent. Unanimous consent is a rule in the U.S. Senate where any U.S. senator can block a bill from progressing to go to the floor for a vote. Okay, that's unanimous consent. Once again, nobody wants to answer this question. If you can't get a goddamn Juneteenth bill passed in the U.S. Senate, how the hell are you going to get a reparations bill passed? This is why we need to understand the rules of the Senate. Nobody really wants to deal with this. Okay, because this is the unsexy work right here. Nobody wants to have this conversation. You got to understand, this is what I talked to Dr. Ray Winbush about last week on the African History Network show, where we dealt with reparations is more than a check. And this is what I talked to Dr. Wade Nobles about, okay? You have to understand the process of getting a bill out of committee in the House of Representatives, getting onto the House floor, getting it voted on, then going to the U.S. Senate, going to debate for the U.S. Senate, maneuvering around the unanimous consent rule, and actually getting the bill passed in the Senate, then going to a president's desk to be signed into law. Based upon Article 1 of the U.S. Constitution, reparations has to pass both chambers of the legislative branch, okay, before it goes to the president's desk to be signed into law. That's just understanding the Constitution. That's Article 1. The powers of the purse string belong to Congress. A president is not just going to give reparations. No, it don't. A president is not just going to give reparations. Then I was reading an article talking about how HR 40 is gaining more steam, and Representative Sheila Jackson Lee is looking at really trying to push HR 40 through because of coronavirus and the inequities, racial inequities, and things like this being exposed, right? So I was reading this article, things from USA Today. Some dumbass said, tell Nancy Pelosi to cut the check. Nancy Pelosi can't cut no check, man. First of all, reparations is paid from the Treasury Department if you're talking about cash payments. Nancy Pelosi can't cut a check. So it's just people just operating based upon nonsense. What I'm saying is we have to do the work to actually research, how do we get bills passed? What's the process? Okay. Okay, we still on? We can get it, but we won't get it anytime soon. You ain't even going to get it, dude. It's still going to be a long process because America needs a massive history lesson. Americans are woefully ignorant of history. African Americans, white Americans. If you're having debates, if people are in the street arguing over taking down Confederate monuments, what the hell? I mean, if we're arguing over taking down Confederate monuments, if you have a president that who's threatening to veto a bill if it contains changing the names of military bases named after traitors to the Union, if we can't get a goddamn Juneteenth bill passed through the Senate, what makes you think realistically you can get a reparations bill passed? Unless you vote some of these dumbasses out of especially the Senate, because the Senate is predominantly white. It's like 95, like close to 95% of the Senate is white. See, this is the unsexy stuff. See, we should have hashtag cut the bullshit, because nobody wants to deal with this. This is the actual process. How do we get this bill out of now? When we look at HR 40, see, first thing, if I ask you, explain to me the difference between a House bill, a House resolution, and a House joint resolution, and you don't know what the hell I'm talking about, I'm going in the opposite direction. Unless you want to learn, but a lot of people don't want to learn. They just want to, okay, whatever. So HR 40 is a House resolution. Even though we say a bill, a House bill is different. A House bill, go to house.gov. This is what I'm saying. We got to learn the process. The information is there. House.gov, Senate.gov. We need to read how this shit works. A House resolution only applies in the House of Representatives. It doesn't have to pass the U.S. Senate. It doesn't have to be signed into law by a president. It's not a law. It's a resolution. It only applies to the House of Representatives. Okay? It takes 218 votes to get anything passed in the House of Representatives. That's HR 40. It's not, if it was a bill, if it was actually a bill, even though we call it a bill, if it was actually a bill, it would be HB 40. It's not, it's HR 40. So you don't have to go through the Senate to do the study and make the recommendations. Now, to actually pay out reparations, yeah, that got to go through the House, the Senate. You're going to need 60 votes in the Senate. Nobody really wants to talk about that. You're going to need 60 votes in the Senate. So what that means is, even if Democrats take back control of the U.S. House, U.S. Senate, which they should, so now it's 53 Republicans, 47 Democrats, and independents. 2 independents, Senator Angus King of Maine and Senator Bernie Sanders of Vermont, right? If it flips and Democrats need to take back control of the Senate, because you can't get these bills passed in the House, 433 bills Democrats passed in the House of Representatives in 2019, 80% die in the Senate. Senate controlled by Moscow Mitch McConnell and Republicans. But even if it flips 53, 47 Democrats, you still gonna need 7 Republicans to vote for reparations. Nobody wants to have this conversation. Well, the Black Tea Party Republican, Senator Tim Scott from South Carolina, he already said he's not voting for reparations. If the Black Republicans not gonna vote for reparations, what the hell makes you think white Republicans gonna vote for it? People don't want to have this conversation. This is unsexy to have. Okay? This is why I'm saying, dude, look, we got to study this process. Okay? All this other bullshit got to stop if we really want to get something accomplished. All right. And I know people mean well and have good hearts and good intentions. I'm saying we have to study the rules. We're playing a game of football and don't know the difference between a first down and a touchdown and wonder why we don't have any points on the board. Okay, so let's look at this because there was another article. There was another article dealing with this. How's everybody doing? Christine, Erica, y'all can still hear me, right? Markeith. There was another article dealing with this from, I'm gonna try to pull it up. Computer's freezing up on me some here. Talking Points Memo had an article dealing with Senator Tom Cotton of, he got the right last name, Cotton, because he's out of his cotton picking mind. Senator Tom Cotton of Arkansas, okay? Yeah, see, this is right here. Mediate.com, they have this article, Talking Points Memo. I think I posted it on my personal Facebook page. Senator Tom Cotton calls slavery, quote, the necessary evil upon which the nation was built. I'm not playing games. These people have lost their goddamn minds. These people are crazy. These people have to be voted out of office. Elections have consequences. There ain't no two ways about it. Our taxpayer dollars pay for his salary. Our taxpayer dollars pay for the salary of his staff. Okay, he writes and votes on laws that impact every aspect of our lives. We have to understand political self-defense, understanding how laws and policies impact the economic conditions of African Americans, impact our lives. We have to fire the people who are doing us harm. Check this out. Senator Tim Cotton, Republican from Arkansas, raised eyebrows with comments that were published in the Arkansas Democrat Gazette on Sunday, calling slavery the necessary evil upon which the Union was built, end quote. Necessary for whom? Would he be all right with African people enslaving white people, enslaving his ancestors? Necessary for whom? Senator Tom Cotton's remarks came in the context of an interview regarding a bill he filed that would prevent federal tax dollars from being used to teach the 1619 Project, a research project, podcast series, and accompanying curriculum that was developed by Nicole Hannah-Jones for the New York Times Magazine. The date refers to the year in which the first slaves from Africa were brought to colonial America, and the project seeks to quote, reframe American history by considering what it would mean to regard 1619 as our nation's birth year, end quote. So now I kind of disagree with the nation's birth year being 1619 because the Constitution, because the nation operates based upon the Constitution. You really need to look at 1787, the Constitution ratified, the Constitution being voted on, being ratified, 1787, the ratification process. So we're really looking at 1787, 1789. Dealing with that. Some people put it at September 17, 1787, with the Constitution being signed. U.S. Constitution. Before that, you have the Articles of the Confederation, and you have the that's like 1781, 1782, the Articles of the Confederation. So saying that the nation starts 1619 and is still under British rule, that's a stretch right there. But Nicole Hannah-Jones is not a historian. There are problems with the 1619 Project. I admit that, but to have a bill to block federal funding from being able to teach from it, that's just sick. Okay, hold on, let's see what's going on here. All right. How's everybody doing on YouTube? Okay, we should still be on. Okay, so the 1619 Project won praise from describing how slavery's legacy continues to affect present day America, and Nicole Hannah-Jones won the Pulitzer Prize for her work. However, it was also subject to criticism, as, quote, historical revisionism, end quote, for some of its assertions, primarily the claim that the American Revolution was primarily fought to preserve slavery. That's a stretch right there. I think the 1619 project should be like revised or something like that. They need a 1619 project 2.0. They need more historians in there, bringing in Dr. Leonard Jeffries and the Professor James Small, things like that, in to enhance it. Bringing in a Dr. David Imhotep. Okay. So now let's continue here. However, it was also subject to criticism as historical revisionism for some of its assertions, primarily the claim that the American Revolution was primarily fought to preserve slavery. Leslie M. Harris, who had served as a fact checker for the project, was among several prominent historians who, quote, vigorously disputed, end quote, this claim. And she wrote in an op-ed article at politico.com. Now, Senator Tom Cotton's bill, the Saving American History Act of 2020, this bill, this impacts what our children learn in school, labels the 1619 project as, quote, a distortion of American history, end quote, and would cut off federal professional development funds from any school district that teaches the project's curriculum, as well as reducing other federal funding in the amount estimated for that district's, quote, cost associated with teaching the 1619 project, including in planning time and teaching time, end quote. Now, federal funds that serve low income or special needs students would not be changed. Federal funds that serve low income or special needs students would not be changed. In his interview with the Arkansas newspaper, Senator Tom Cotton called the 1619 project, quote, left-wing propaganda, end quote, factually, historically flawed, and revisionist history at its worst. What the hell you think is being taught to our children right now? See, that's what I find interesting. What do you think is being taught to our children right now? Let's continue because it gets worse. He noted that the curriculum decisions were mostly decided at the local and state level, and his bill did not ban the 1619 project's materials from being taught. It just refused to fund them if they did so. He said, quote, if local left-wing school boards want to fill their children's heads with anti-American rot, that's their regrettable choice, end quote, Senator Tom Cotton, Republican from Arkansas, said. Quote, but they ought not to benefit from federal tax dollars to teach America's children to hate America, end quote. It's not teaching America's children to hate America. African-American children have been taught to hate themselves by what has been taught in the school funded by taxpayers. Now, let's look at it like this. African-Americans pay taxes. We're getting a reinvestment on our taxes. Taxpayer dollars come from taxpayers. African-Americans pay taxes. Okay? So that's our taxpayer dollars coming back to us in the form of education. He went on to say, quote, he said, but they ought not to benefit from federal tax dollars to teach America's children to hate America. This is what he said. He went on to say, quote, it won't be much money, end quote, he pointed out, but even a penny is too much to go to the 1619 project in our public schools. The New York Times should not be teaching American history to our kids, end quote. Now, Senator Tom Cotton, Senator Tom Cotton, Republican from Arkansas, spoke at length about the core premise of the 1619 project. Quote, the entire premise of the New York Times factually, historically flawed 1619 project, he said, is that America is at root a systematically racist country to the core and irredeemable. I reject that root and branch. Well, some of it is irredeemable, like Donald Trump is irredeemable. Quote, America is a great and noble country founded on the proposition that all mankind is created equal. We have always struggled to live up to that promise, but no country has ever done more to achieve it. So when those words were written, when the Declaration was the Declaration of Independence was largely written by Thomas Jefferson. Jefferson owned African slaves. Okay, in his lifetime, he owned about 600. You can't. So let's go to the Declaration of Independence. Okay, this is the Declaration of Independence and other great documents of American history. Okay. I'm not sure if Senator Tom Cotton has ever read the Declaration of Independence, but let's look at what it says. That's the Constitution. When in the course of human events, it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political. Let's see here in Congress, July 4th. We hold these truths to be self-evident. Okay. When in the course of human events, it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another, and to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and of nature's God entitle them. A decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the causes which impelled them to the separation. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, capital M, men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed, that whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it, and to institute new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organize, etc. Blah, 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 right? That's the Declaration of Independence. 1776, at the same time, now there were 56 signers of the Declaration of Independence, 56 signers of the Declaration of Independence, many of them slave owners. At the same time they're writing this, and Thomas Jefferson wrote the majority of the Declaration of Independence, okay? And you're talking about we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. At the same time, the country was depriving African people of their rights, enslaving them, put into the category of property. What is Senator Tom Cotton talking about? But this is that nonsense. Now, I guarantee you Senator Tom Cotton will not support strengthening the Voting Rights Act, because Representative John Lewis was laid to rest today. You're going to have all these people putting out these statements and platitudes, a lot of these Republicans, but they're not going to vote for the bill to strengthen the Voting Rights Act and repair the damage that Shelby County versus Holder 2013 U.S. Supreme Court case did, which gutted Section 5 of the Voting Rights Act, which dealt with oversight, which then led to there being 868 fewer polling places in the 2016 election. And today there's 1,700 fewer polling places. They're not going to support something like that. They'll be teary-eyed and they say John Lewis was a great man and all this stuff, but they won't back it up with action and strengthen the Voting Rights Act, because they know if more African Americans, more Hispanic Americans, etc., can vote, and they can alleviate a lot of this voter suppression that's taking place, they know a lot of these Republicans know they will be voted out of office. Okay, so let's go on. Let's go on and see what the rest of this article from mediate.com says, what Senator Tom Cotton, Republican from Arkansas, said. Quote, America is a great and noble country founded on the proposition that all mankind is created equal. That didn't apply to African people in general. Okay. Then the U.S. Constitution. Okay. Then the majority of African people within in that country, in that status, right, were enslaved. Now you're going to have some free African Americans. You have Moors. I'm not talking about Moors. That's a total different status. Okay. Article 6 of the U.S. Constitution tells you that the U.S. Constitution, all of the previous treaties and all the subsequent treaties are the supreme law of the land. So I'm not talking about Moors. That's a different status. They have nationality, etc. Quote, so he said, we have always struggled to live up to that promise, but no country has ever done more to achieve it. I'm not so sure about that. Senator Tom Cotton also addressed how he believes slavery should be taught. In the interview, Senator Tom Cotton, Republican from Arkansas, said the role of slavery cannot be overlooked. Quote, we have to study the history of slavery and its role and impact on the development of our country, because otherwise we can't understand our country. As the founding fathers said, it was the necessary evil upon which the Union was built, but the Union was built in a way, as Lincoln said, to put slavery on the course to its ultimate extinction. Senator Tom, a sitting U.S. senator, says that slavery was a necessary evil. Necessary for whom? People too lazy to do the damn work? Necessary for whom? Let me repeat this. As the founding fathers said, it was the necessary evil upon which the Union was built. It didn't have to be built that way. It's one thing for the founding fathers to say that, or the founding fathers, as Dr. Francis Cress Wilson called them. It's one thing for them to say that in 1776 or 1787. It's different for a sitting U.S. senator to cite them as justification for slavery. So he goes on to say, as Lincoln said, to put slavery on the course to its ultimate extinction, end quote. Instead of portraying America as, quote, an irredeemably corrupt, rotten, and racist country, end quote, the nation should be viewed, quote, as an imperfect and flawed land, but the greatest and noblest country in the history of mankind, end quote. With millions of people in poverty, and you're talking about the greatest and noblest country in the history of mankind, you judge a country by how it treats the least people. You judge a country by how it treats its children, how it treats its elderly, how it treats its poor. Senator Tom Cotton got some backlash on Twitter for the interview, including directly from Nicole Hannah-Jones. She tweeted, if chattel slavery, heritable, generational, permanent, race-based slavery, where it was legal to rape, torture, and sell human beings for profit, were a quote-unquote necessary evil, as Tom Cotton says, it's hard to imagine what cannot be justified if it is a means to an end. Now, he's a staunch supporter of Donald Trump. Okay. And he said the U.S. should be viewed as a nation, imperfect and flawed, but the greatest and noblest country. So when I look at the definition of the word great, it's about 13. So I have a dictionary that has about, it's a Webster dictionary, has about 400,000 words in it. I look at the word great, the 13 different definitions for great, only maybe 2 of them, maybe 3 have anything to do with being good. So when somebody says the U.S., and I'm not being anti-U.S., I'm just talking about understanding history. When somebody says the U.S. is the greatest nation in the world, or the history of the world, however they want to put it, I have to ask them, how are you defining great? You got Republicans that don't want to extend unemployment benefits for $600 a week from the federal government to people because they're afraid that people will make more on unemployment than they will in going to work. And most of the U.S. senators are millionaires. So one, when you say great, great for whom? And two, how are you defining great? So Nicole Hannah Jones also tweeted, so was slavery foundational to the Union on which it was built or no? You heard it from Senator Tom Cotton. He responded to Nicole Hannah Jones. He said, this is the definition of fake news. I said that the founders viewed slavery as a necessary evil and described how they put the evil institution on the path to extinction, a point frequently made by Lincoln. This is how, now he also is against changing the names of Confederate monuments and things like that, or taking down Confederate monuments and changing names of Confederate military bases named after Confederate heroes, etc. These are the type of people that have to be voted out of office. Okay, these are the type of people that have to be voted out of office. All right, now let's continue here. We talked about the article dealing with Juneteenth bill blocked by Senator Ron Johnson, okay, of Wisconsin. And then let's get into quickly, let's get into some of this other news here. This was an article from mediate.com. Once again, then all you have to do is Google Senator Tom Cotton, the information comes up. Senator Tom Cotton criticized for calling slavery necessary evil. All right, mediate.com. He was interviewed by Arkansas newspaper. A lot of people are talking about this. If we have any trolls, let me know and I'll get rid of the trolls. All right. So let's look at we see protests are continuing across the country. We see in Louisville, Kentucky, competing protesters converge on Breonna Taylor's home. Associated Press had this article, July 25th, 2020. Hundreds of armed, predominantly Black activists demanded justice for Breonna Taylor during peaceful demonstrations Saturday, July 25th in her Kentucky hometown that drew counter protesters from a white militia group. So the No Effing Around coalition was there. They're led by Grandmaster Jay. From my understanding, I posted an interview that a news outlet there on the ground did with Grandmaster Jay. You can check that out. Okay, it's at our Facebook fan page, The African History Network, The African History Network. Now, regardless of what you think about the Black militia, No Effing Around coalition, they are Black militia. Regardless of what you think about them, watch that video that I posted, okay? Because it was really good. He gave a lot of good information. Check them out. If you want to join, that's fine. If you check them out and decide you don't want to join, that's fine. I'm not saying you should or shouldn't join, but listen to what he's saying, okay? So police closed streets and set up barricades to keep the two groups apart as tensions remained on edge in Louisville, Kentucky, where protests have flared for months over the death of Breonna Taylor, who was the EMT who was shot and killed while she was asleep. The police came in with a no-knock warrant. Her boyfriend shoots one of the police because they don't know that they're police. Okay. Legal gun owner defends himself. She shot 8 times while she's asleep. and she ends up dying. And new information came out and said she was alive for 5 minutes after she was shot, gasping for air, etc. So by the time Black activists dressed in black fatigues arrived in the heart of downtown Louisville, Kentucky, Saturday afternoon, most of the white militia members had already left. Police in full riot gear looked on. Earlier in the day, 3 people were accidentally shot at a park where Black activists had gathered. Police said the victims, all of whom were members of the Black militia group, were taken to a hospital with non-life-threatening injuries. Police said it was an accidental shooting. So the police chief Robert Schroeder, Louisville Metro Police, he said this is a tragic situation that could have been much worse. I encourage anyone choosing to exercise the Second Amendment right to do so responsibly. Now, the Black activists had converged on Louisville to demand justice for Breonna Taylor, calls for a national reckoning over racism and police brutality intensified following the deaths of Breonna Taylor and George Floyd in Minneapolis. Okay, so this is an article from Associated Press. Okay, you can read the rest of this. Competing protesters converge on Breonna Taylor's hometown. Competing protesters converge on Breonna Taylor's hometown. Now, we see that there are protests taking place in Portland, Oregon, Seattle, Washington, Los Angeles, New York as well. And other people are protesting, other cities are protesting in support of what's going on in Portland. We look at the New York Times, July 26, 2020. Fires and pepper spray in Seattle as police protests widen across U.S. Fires and pepper spray in Seattle as police protests widen across U.S. From Los Angeles to New York, protesters march in a show of solidarity with demonstrations in Portland, Oregon. In Seattle, they smashed windows and set fires. A shooting at a protest in Austin, Texas, left 1 man dead. Now, weeks of violent clashes between federal agents and protesters in Portland, Oregon, galvanized thousands of people to march through the streets of American cities on Saturday, July 25th, 2020, injecting new life into protests that had largely waned in recent weeks. Injecting new life into protests that had largely waned in recent weeks. Now, one of the most intense protests was in Seattle, Washington, where a day of demonstrations focused on police violence left a trail of broken windows and people flushing pepper spray from their eyes. At least 45 protesters have been arrested as of early evening. And both protesters and police officers suffered injuries, carrying signs such as carrying signs that said things like "Feds go home" and shouting chants of "No justice, no peace." Some among the crowd of about 5,000 protesters stopped at a youth detention center and lit several construction trailers there on fire. Okay, this is in Seattle, Washington. Some smashed windows of nearby businesses, ignited a fire in a coffee shop, and blew an 8-inch hole through the wall of the Seattle Police Department's East Precinct building, the police said. Quote, "At this point, we declared the event to be a riot and several orders to disperse were given," the Seattle police chief, Carmen Best said at a news conference. Okay, so they're protesting in support of what's going on in Portland, Oregon. Now, in Portland, they've been protesting. I think Saturday was the 57th straight day they've been protesting in Oregon, Portland, Oregon, and Donald Trump has sent federal troops in. The mayor and the governor there in Oregon are saying, "We don't want the federal troops, get them out of here." Okay, Trump has turned the federal troops onto largely peaceful protesters. They're shooting tear gas at them. You have protesters who are the wall of moms who have come out to protect the protesters as well. And then you have veterans who are coming out to protect the protesters also in Portland, Oregon. Now, the police responding by this is still in Seattle, Washington. The police responded by firing flash grenades, showering protesters with pepper spray, and abruptly rushing into crowds, knocking people to the ground. After a flash grenade left one woman with bodily injuries, police officers shoved people who had stopped to help her. In Austin, Texas, the police said one man was shot and killed before 10 p.m. during a protest in the city's downtown. In a live video from the scene, protesters are seen marching through an intersection when a car blares its horn. Seconds later, 5 shots ring out, followed shortly by several more loud bangs. Okay. The man who was killed may have approached the vehicle with a rifle before he was shot and killed, Officer Katrina Ratcliffe said. Officer Katrina Ratcliffe said the person who shot and killed the man had fired from inside the vehicle. That person was detained and is cooperating with officers. She said no one else was injured. Okay, now we look at Los Angeles. In Los Angeles, protesters clashed with officers in front of the federal courthouse downtown. Video shows people smashing windows and lobbing water bottles and officers after protesters said the police fired projectiles at them. Now, the federal courthouse in Portland, Oregon, has been the scene of nightly chaotic demonstrations for weeks, which continued again into Sunday morning, Sunday, July 26th, as thousands participated in marches around the city, the 59th consecutive day of protest there. Earlier, a group of nurses and scrubs had joined an organized group of mothers in helmets and fathers in hard hats, all assembled against the fence of a federal courthouse where federal agents, a deployment that has been a key focus of the recent demonstrations, have been assembled. Shortly after 1 a.m., the Portland police said the protests had become a riot and ordered the crowd to leave. Federal agents fired tear gas and left the courthouse to drive protesters from the streets, continuing to stretch the boundaries of their authority as legal experts question how far the agents could stray beyond federal property. Donald Trump says the federal agents are there to protect the federal courthouse, the federal property. Retired General Russell Honore said that on MSNBC, he said the protesters should keep protesting, but move your protest 5 blocks away from the federal courthouse. Therefore, the federal troops don't have jurisdiction 5 blocks away from the federal courthouse. You won't come in contact with them. And he said, you're playing into Donald Trump's hand because Donald Trump wants that conflict between the federal troops and the protesters. The protesters are labeled as Black Lives Matter protesters, even though most of them are white. This is Portland, Oregon, one of the whitest cities in the country. The protesters are being labeled as Black Lives Matter protesters. Donald Trump is running on the platform of law and order, inflicting cruelty among immigrants and quote unquote undocumented immigrants, but he don't want to talk about white undocumented immigrants. That's a whole nother conversation, but he's running on the platform of law and order. Okay. Even though he wants to defy the U.S. Supreme Court and do what? Trump signs a memo to omit undocumented immigrants from the census apportionment count, which is a violation of Article 1 of the U.S. Constitution. But he's the law and order president, but you want to defy the U.S. Supreme Court and defy the U.S. Constitution. Okay, well, whatever. We need to vote his ass out of office. I'm telling you, period. Full stop. He's got to go. He's an authoritarian. We saw what he did in June in Washington, D.C., turning federal agents and the military on protesters. We see what he's doing in Portland, Oregon. He's talking about sending the feds to Chicago, Detroit, other states with Democratic governors, other states with Democratic mayors. Now, he's not sending them to states that have, he's not sending them to cities that have Republican governors that have problems with crime, like Jacksonville, Florida. He's not doing that. This is all a ploy to try to win re-election in 2020, running on the platform of law and order. Okay. But really his platform should be lawlessness and disorder, because that's what he's all about. All right, let's continue here. Let's continue quickly here. Go read all these articles. Also, if you like this type of information, you can donate to the African History Network, $ the AHN Show through Cash App, $ the AHN Show through Cash App, and also paypal.me / the AHN Show through PayPal, paypal.me / the AHN Show through PayPal. And you can go to our website, africanhistorynetwork.com, africanhistorynetwork.com. Click on the yellow donate on the homepage, yellow donate button on the homepage. And all of my DVD lectures and online courses are there at our website. Also, one of my latest presentations is 6 Principles of Political Self-Defense. 6 Principles of Political Self-Defense, understanding how laws and policies impact the economic conditions of African Americans. Actually, 2 lectures on that DVD. Okay. And I think we have that in digital download format also. 6 Principles of Political Self-Defense. All right, let's continue here. We're looking at the protests taking place. I posted one article from the Washington Post. They picked it up from lily.com. And this deals with how talking about the wall of moms in Portland, Oregon takes away from African-American mothers who've been in this fight, been in this struggle for years. I said we need to talk about both of them, because if Donald Trump will turn the military on white mothers in Portland, Oregon, okay, what would he do to African-American mothers? What would he do to African-American fathers if he'll turn the military on white people, especially white mothers in Portland, Oregon? So we need to pay attention to this. Okay. All right. Let's continue. So protesters in several cities said the smoke-filled videos of federal agents firing tear gas and shoving protesters in Portland, Oregon have brought them to the streets on Saturday. So other people in other cities are seeing what's going on in Portland, Oregon, and they're coming out protesting against this. In Los Angeles, in New York, and Seattle, Washington, they're coming out protesting against Donald Trump sitting in federal troops into Portland, Oregon. Okay, so read that article. That's from New York Times. There's like 4 or 5 more pages. It's an 8-page article. Fires and pepper spray in Seattle as police protests widen across U.S. Okay. Then we see Washington Post: protests explode across the country. Police declare riots in Seattle, Portland. Okay, this talks about it as well. All right, so I'm not going to go through all that. Read that also. Okay. We post, and this is why you follow us on our Facebook fan page, the African History Network. We post these articles there on our fan page also. Coronavirus update. We're at over 4 million cases here in the U.S. We see the United States tally just shy of 1,000 coronavirus-related deaths on Saturday, July 25th, after a 4-day streak of 4-digit death tolls. The U.S. had 1,000 or more deaths for 4 days in a row this past week. This was the worst accounting of human loss from the virus since late May. It's increasing, it's spreading. You saw the interview that Donald Trump did with Chris Wallace on Fox News last Sunday. And Donald Trump talked about we have more cases because we have more testing. No, it's spreading. Chris Wallace fact-checked him. He said testing has increased by 34%, but the spread of the disease has increased by 194%. The infection rate is drastically increasing. It's spreading faster. We saw that it took 6 weeks to go from 2 million cases to 4 million cases. We saw the number of cases double in 6 weeks. Okay, the number of cases doubled in 6 weeks. Okay, now with, if we look at some of the statistics, the country reported more than 67,000 infections, raising the 7-day average to 66,752. The U.S. is averaging 67,000 new cases per day over the course of 7 days. The world surpassed 16 million confirmed cases this weekend and reached at least 641,000 coronavirus-related deaths. The United States accounts for about 1/4 of the reported infections, about 25% of the reported infections in the world, and 1/5 of the death. 1/5 of the death toll, 20% of the death toll in the world, about 4%, almost 5% of the world population. Okay. So we see that with just days to go until enhanced jobless aid expires, Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin told Fox News' Chris Wallace on Sunday, July 26, that the White House and GOP lawmakers were on the same page and would present a stimulus package Monday, straying from what White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows and Senate Majority Leader Moscow Mitch McConnell previously suggested. Moscow Mitch McConnell on Friday announced that an agreement could take a few weeks, potentially leaving millions of Americans in limbo when benefits are cut off. Okay. So we see that also the Larry Kudlow, White House economic advisor, said Sunday that the federal government would extend a 4-month moratorium on evictions because we're about to be hit with a massive number of evictions and foreclosures, and African Americans are going to be disproportionately impacted by this. This stuff is going to get worse. This is an example of how elections have consequences. This is what happens when you have a dumbass that doesn't read his presidential daily briefings daily. This is what happens when you have somebody who declared war on the scientists. This is what happens when you had somebody whose national security advisor, John Bolton, in May of 2018, removed Timothy Zimmer, who was the head of the global pandemic team for the National Security Council, and he was not replaced. This is what happens when you have the predict pandemic team that's disbanded. That was disbanded about 2018, I think, under the Trump administration. All this stuff was taken apart, which would have seen corona coming and gotten ahead of it. All this stuff didn't have to happen. All these deaths, the shutdown, businesses. It's estimated that 45% of African-American owned businesses are not going to survive the next 6 months. Okay. All this stuff did not have to happen. Okay. So read the rest of this. Read these updates here from the Washington Post. Coronavirus updates. Trump's chief economic advisor says federal eviction ban will be extended. Okay. We got that. U.S. coronavirus cases double in just 6 weeks to 4 million. All right. CBSnews.com has the article July 24th, 2020. Study identifies 6 different types of COVID-19. Study identifies 6 different types of COVID-19. Let me switch. Hold on just a second. How's everybody doing on Facebook and YouTube? Got Lisa, Holly on YouTube. Just a few of the people there. We're here for a few more minutes. Okay. I just wanted to give you the names of some of these articles, get through this because I don't have time. I'm so busy working. I don't have time to broadcast during the week. Oh, got to deal with this article. This trader right here, this trader in chief. Trump signs memo to omit undocumented immigrants from census apportionment count. That's illegal. July 21st, 2020. Donald Trump signed a memo Tuesday that aims to bar undocumented immigrants living in the country from being included in the U.S. Census for purposes of deciding how many members of Congress are apportioned to each state. That ties into the Electoral College. He's trying to shift the balance in favor of Republican-leaning states so they can steal more presidential elections and reduce the number of Democrats in the U.S. House of Representatives. That's what all this is about. Trump said in the memo that it will be the, quote, policy of the United States to exclude from the apportionment-based aliens who are not in a lawful immigration status under the Immigration and Nationality Act, end quote. The memo directs Commerce Secretary Wilbur Ross, who oversees the U.S. Census, to provide the president with data about the number of people who are undocumented so that when census officials present the president with the final count, the president can exclude them from the population totals used to determine how many House of Representatives seats each state will have is based upon population. The U.S. Census Article 1, the Article 1 of the U.S. Constitution created this census. The census is taken every year. The first census was taken in 1790. The census is designed to count, based upon the Constitution, everybody in the U.S. regardless of status, because funding has to go to those cities and go to those states. More democratic leaning states will have more undocumented immigrants. Now, just so people understand, 60% of undocumented immigrants come here legally and overstay their visa. Most of them don't run across the southern border. And in 2017, illegal border crossings at the southern border was at a 40-year low. That's from the report from Homeland Security. Okay, a lot of this stuff is just a smokescreen. Donald Trump said in a statement Tuesday, quote, "We will collect all of the information we need to conduct an accurate census and to make responsible decisions about public policy, voting rights, and representation in Congress." No, you're circumventing the U.S. Constitution and you're circumventing the U.S. Supreme Court decision that told you you could not put a citizenship question on the census because it violated the U.S. Constitution. But he's supposed to be the law and order president. No, he's the president of lawlessness and disorder, and he's an authoritarian dictator who must be stopped, period. The administration argues that the Constitution does not specifically define which, quote unquote, persons must be included in the apportionment base, noting that documented immigrants who are in the country temporarily and certain foreign diplomatic personnel are, quote unquote, persons who have been excluded from the apportionment base in past censuses. It was not immediately clear how undocumented immigrants would be identified. The census questionnaire, which was distributed in March 2020, did not require respondents to indicate whether they or others in their households are citizens. The reason why was because he was defeated in court. They tried to put the citizenship question on the 2020 census. They came up with, they kept changing the reason why they wanted to put a citizenship question, because there hasn't been one about 70 years. They changed the reason, they kept changing the reason why. At first they said it's to enforce the 1965 Voting Rights Act. That's not why. It was not immediately clear how undocumented immigrants would be identified. The census questionnaire was distributed in March 2020. Now, the administration tried in 2019 to add a citizenship question for the first time in 60 years. Okay, my correction. First time in 60 years, not 70 years, first time in 60 years. But the U.S. Supreme Court blocked the Commerce Department. The U.S. Supreme Court ruled that it was unconstitutional. Chief Justice John Roberts of the U.S. Supreme Court joined the 4-member liberal wing of the court and said the Trump administration's rationale for adding the question was, quote unquote, contrived. No, it was bullshit. That's what it was. The census results are used to determine the number of seats in the U.S. House of Representatives each state is allocated, and it affects the dispersal of billions of federal dollars. It also determines how many electoral college votes a state has. How does it do that? Well, how do you determine how many electoral college votes a state has? Why does California have 55 and Texas has 38 and Michigan has 16 and Maine and Vermont have 3? You take the number of seats in the U.S. House of Representatives a state has, you add to that the number of U.S. senators a state has. Every state has 2 based upon the U.S. Constitution. That's why 2 times 50 is 100. And that tells you how many electoral college votes a state has. Well, white people have a negative birth rate in 26 states out of 50. That's not me. That's the U.S. Census Bureau, June of 2018. So what Republicans are saying is not only do they want to control the federal courts for the next 25, 30, 40 years, and Donald Trump has gotten confirmed 200 federal judges in almost 4 years with the help of Moscow Mitch McConnell. These are lifetime appointments. But if they can get a citizenship question on the census results are good for 10 years. So what you do is, even if Democratic states have higher voter turnout, even if some of them may have a higher population, if you don't count undocumented immigrants, then what you do is you reduce the number of seats in the House of Representatives they have, like Michigan or Illinois, okay, or California. If you reduce the number of seats in the House of Representatives they have, you reduce the number of electoral college votes that these states have, these Democratic leaning states have, and you shift the balance of power to Republican states so they can steal more presidential elections, even if they have a smaller population. This is what all this is about. And it's also about federal funding. But when I told you that we need to stop this jackass in 2016, people thought I was playing game. No, I wasn't. Donald Trump is a combination of George Wallace, governor of Alabama, and Richard Nixon. And he's becoming more of an authoritarian like Adolf Hitler and other authoritarians that he honors and loves, Vladimir Putin, Kim Jong-un, and all of the rest of them. So the census results are used to determine the number of seats in the U.S. House of Representatives. Each seat is allocated, and it affects the dispersal of billions of federal dollars. So when I think it was about the year 2000, when Detroit dropped under 1 million population, 1 million citizens in the city of Detroit, we not only lost a lot of federal funding, we lost a U.S. congressional seat. We lost a seat in the U.S. House of Representatives, which then dropped the number of electoral college votes the state of Michigan had. That's because of that population. Well, I'm sorry, let me back up. It may have stayed if people, I'm not sure if people just move to the suburbs and move out of state. I know Detroit lost a congressional seat. Let me put it like that. Okay. If people leave the state, it can reduce the number of seats in the House of Representatives the state has. If it's just people moving within the state, one city could lose representation in the House of Representatives. Other cities can gain representation because of increase in population. You have to see. But if people are leaving the state, it can decrease the number of seats in the House of Representatives overall for the state, which then affects the electoral college. Proposals to omit undocumented immigrants have been criticized as efforts to reduce aid to states with large immigrant populations and to reduce the political clout of those areas, which are heavily represented by Democrats. And when cities like Detroit and Chicago, when they lose federal funding because undocumented immigrants are not counted, that hurts people in the city, including African Americans. The other thing is that you can have a huge, if your state loses electoral college votes, it loses seats in the House of Representatives, which means it reduces the number of electoral college votes your state has. You can have a huge increase in voter turnout in a presidential election, but it doesn't have as big of an impact when it comes to getting the 270 electoral college votes. Now, a lot of people think, oh, the popular vote doesn't matter when it comes to voting for president. Oh, no, the popular vote does matter. It's not the popular vote nationwide. It's the popular vote per state that matters. Because a candidate to get the 270 electoral college votes, this is why we need to study how the electoral college works. To get the 270 electoral college votes, which is needed to become president-elect, you have to win the popular vote in the state to win the electoral college votes associated with the state. So Texas is 38. The state that has the most number of electoral college votes is California, 55. Michigan has 16. The least amount of electoral college votes a state will have is 3. Okay. So November 9th, 2016, Donald Trump became president-elect because he got more than 270 electoral college votes. You need at least 270. Okay. He got 300 and something. But he's president-elect because the electoral college doesn't vote until the first Monday following the second Wednesday in December. That fell on December 19th. We got to understand how this stuff works. Because when you understand how this stuff works, so people say the electoral college needs to be abolished. No, it doesn't. We just need to read. I was about to say something else. But start with it. Wasn't going to be the N word. It's going to be something else. But so we need to read. How is it Republicans understand how to suppress the votes of African Americans and college students and Hispanics? How is it Republicans were able to steal 2 presidential elections, 2000 and 2016, through the Electoral College? It's not because Republicans created the Electoral College, because the Electoral College was created at the Philadelphia Convention in 1787. The Republican Party wasn't founded to 1854. No, it's because they read. And they strategize and study. We don't read. I listen to people. Electoral college the popular vote don't matter. Yes, it does. It's the popular vote per state that matters. Page 4 of this article, Trump signs memo to omit undocumented immigrants from census apportionment count. NBCnews.com, July 21st, 2020. See, I've done an entire presentation dealing with the history of the Electoral College and how it works, because I went and studied it. Trump's order is likely to prompt legal challenges from Democratic-controlled states that brought the lawsuit challenging the citizenship question. Actually, some states have already sued them. Washington Post had an article dealing with this. I didn't get a chance to print that up because I got so many. I mean, these are just articles on the laptop, right? These are just sitting right here on the laptop. Maybe that's why the laptop is hot right now. These are just articles right here. That's one stack. Then we got this stack here, this stuff here, these articles here. All this is constant research. Okay. So opponents argued that a citizenship question would discourage all immigrants from responding and jeopardize the constitutionally mandated count. The Constitution directs Congress to conduct a census count of persons, quote unquote, persons living in the U.S., and it does not distinguish between citizens and non-citizens. It's supposed to count everybody living in the U.S., regardless of status. The Supreme Court has not directly ruled on whether, quote unquote, persons includes immigrants, but lower courts have said undocumented immigrants should be counted. Article goes on to say, quote, the U.S. Constitution requires that everyone in the U.S. be counted in the census. President Trump can't pick and choose, said Dale Ho, H.O., director of the American Civil Liberties Union's Voting Rights Project, who argued the Supreme Court case blocking the administration from adding a citizenship question. Okay, so read the rest of this article. I don't have time to get through all, but this is serious right here. U.S. Supreme Court blocked them So he's going to do basically an executive order to try to get around this. This is how dictators are born. Authoritarianism and fascism, that doesn't happen overnight. It happens incrementally, step by step by step by step. This is why this traitor must be stopped, period. Lastly, WNBA, the WNBA game, Seattle Storm and New York Liberty players dropped their basketballs and walked off the court and back to their respective locker rooms. This is during the white national anthem. They walked off the court while the white national anthem was being played. We posted an article about this. CBSnews.com has this article. Storm and Liberty players walked off court during national anthem in WNBA season opener. Earlier this month, the league announced that the 2020 season will be dedicated to raising awareness about social justice issues. The effort includes warm-up uniforms with the messages "Say Her Name" and "Black Lives Matter," and the creation of a player-led social justice council. There was one game where the players wore Breonna Taylor's name on the back of their jerseys. Before the season opener began, Liberty guard Lashea Clarendon and Storm forward Breonna Stewart addressed the Black Lives Matter movement and dedicated the season to Breonna Taylor, a Black emergency technician who was killed by police in her home in March 2020. We will say her name: Sandra Bland, Tatiana Jefferson, Dominique Remy Fales, and Breonna Taylor. Lashea Clarendon said, "We will be a voice for the voiceless." Okay. She also said Breonna Taylor was dedicated and committed to uplifting everyone around her. We're also dedicating the season to Say Her Name campaign, to Say Her Name campaign, a campaign committed to saying the names and fighting for justice for Black women who are so often forgotten in this fight for justice, who do not have people marching in the streets for them. Now, the teams held a moment of silence for 26 seconds to represent the age of Breonna Taylor when she died. That's the Seattle Storm and the New York Liberty in the game that they played on Saturday, July 25th. Okay, so read the rest of the article. That's from CBSnews.com. And that is enough show for tonight. Okay, for today. All right. How's everybody doing? Follow us on our Facebook fan page, The African History Network, The African History Network. My YouTube channel, Michael Imhotep, IMHOTEP. Sign up for our email newsletter. Text the word Kemet, KEMET, to 22828. KEMET to 22828. Sign up for our email newsletter or at our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. Also, if you want to advertise with the African History Network, email us customer service at AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, customer service at AfricanHistoryNetwork.com to advertise with the African History Network, and you can donate to us to help support the African History Network. $ the AHN show through Cash App, $ the AHN show through Cash App, and then also through PayPal, paypal.me/the AHN show. And then also at our website as well. You can click on the yellow donate button. And all my DVD lectures are at our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. We have bundle packs. We have online courses that I teach as well, all on demand. Ancient Kemet, the Moors and the Ma'afa, understanding the transatlantic slave trade, what they didn't teach you in school. Ancient Kemet, the Moors and the Ma'afa, understanding the transatlantic slave trade, what they didn't teach you in school. That's about 16-hour online courses and 8 sessions, something like that. It's all on demand. Watch at your own pace. We deal with thousands of years of history and history leading up to the transatlantic slave trade. Okay. All right. So we have to get out of here. Remember, right now, knowledge corrects wrong behavior. It's not over till we win. What you do for yourself, what you do to yourself, and what you allow other people to do to you and get away with is based upon what you think about yourself. What you think about yourself is based upon what you have been taught about yourself. What you've been taught about yourself is based upon everything you've read, heard, and seen about yourself. Remember, right now is correct. Wrong behavior is not over till we win. Wakanda forever. We'll talk to you next time. And listen to the African History Network show and watch us Sundays, 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We broadcast, do radio here in Detroit. We broadcast on 9, 10 a.m. the Superstation WFDF in Detroit. We broadcast also on our Facebook fan page, the African History Network, and my YouTube channel, Michael Imhotep. And you can listen to all these broadcasts in audio podcast format. We're on 8 different audio podcast formats. Just search for the African History Network show wherever you get your podcast from. We're on Stitcher, Castbox, FM Player, TuneIn, iTunes, and we're on Blog Talk Radio, blogtalkradio.com/the African History Network show. We have 1,000 podcasts there. blogtalkradio.com/the African History Network show. All right. Right now it's correct. Wrong behavior. It's not over till we win. Wakanda forever. We'll talk to you next time. Peace. Thanks for tuning in.